Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Good morning to you, or afternoon, whatever time it is. Welcome back to another live stream with me, Grizelda K. This is day 14 of the Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles trial, and it's a big day. This is verdict watch day later. Let me just get the chat going here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all my moderators. Welcome to all my patrons. I hope you enjoyed that little video that I shared with you this morning. And also welcome to my members and all subscribers, old and new. So, are we ready for this day? I am so ready. If they said 9:30, well, I can imagine it might be like, yeah, no. Is it going to be 9:30? That's the time now there in Laredo, Texas. I think they might start at 10-ish, 15:15, based on what we know so far about how it's been rolling. Rexy55 says, thank you for all you do. Thank you, Rexy, for being a member for 11 months already. Okay, let me put my border and everything on. So, let me show you this quickly. Which one is it? One of these. This one. Okay, sorry, now it's a little small. I'll make it bigger for you. I just want to show you where we're at. I hope that you guys saw my week 3 summary. If you didn't, check it out. I have pinned it as well. I'm going to unpin this message now. I've also put a poll up for you guys. So let me unpin the message so it doesn't annoy us. And I see you voting. What do you think the jury will recommend? Life without parole, 30%. Death penalty, 70%. Okay, let's see. So, okay, let's look where we're at the moment with this trial, right? So, there were 2 phases to this trial. We're in phase 2, and what that means is phase 1 was all about the guilty phase, right? To get to the verdict. So, we saw the opening statements, the prosecution's case, the defendant's case, the closing statements, jury instructions, and then the verdict, which was a unanimous guilty verdict. So today will be a different kind of verdict. This verdict is all about the jury. What are they going to recommend unanimously? Either the death penalty or life without parole. As I understand it, if even one of them does not recommend the death penalty, it's a life without parole recommendation. If I'm understanding that correctly, if you're from Texas, let me know. Morton Ornstein, welcome to Grizzly $1 supporter. Marge says the jurors were selected because they would vote for the death penalty if the state proved its case. They would not have been selected for the jury otherwise. I think the most important thing that the state said, District Attorney Isidro Alaniz, was he earned it. It's not about what he deserves. Does he deserve to die? Because that can bring quite an emotional response in everyone. Of course, this is a huge deal. But to say he earned it, according to the law, that was very powerful. Because that's also stuck with me. You know, if one thinks about it and you're like, I don't know. And, you know, we've seen the horrific nature of what he did, what Burgos did. But if you think about it too emotionally, one could get wrapped up in that, so to say, but he earned it. It's not about deserving. He earned it. This is how it works here. Tina, thank you so much for your $2 super sticker. Really appreciate it. So we were there, right, at the verdict. Then it was the penalty phase of the trial. That's what we've just been watching. And that would be the discussion of aggravating circumstances, mitigating circumstances. And the state and the defense rested last week. And then there will be jury instructions, victim impact statements, jury deliberation, then the jury sentence recommendations. So they say the jury considers the aggravating and mitigating circumstances surrounding the crime and the defendant and returns with a recommended sentence. In a death penalty case, the jury chooses between a death sentence and a lesser sentence of life without parole, life, or a term of years. Judge sentencing. After considering the jury recommendation, the court formally pronounces punishment on the defendant. In some states, the judge must follow the jury recommendation. In other states, the judge may sentence without a jury or override the jury's recommendation. So that's what we have there. If you are brand new to this case, I would recommend checking out a few things. Number 1 would be trial prep. Number 2 would be week 1, 2, and 3 summary, because you can power through that within less than an hour, especially if you watch it at more than 1.25 speed. 1.5 speed or so. Even at normal speed, it will be about an hour worth of content to get through week 1, 2, and 3 summary that I've made for you every single week. And then the other thing is, if you watch the trial replays, it's all time-stamped for you. And so you could just navigate really easily through the witnesses that you may want to see or key moments throughout the trial day. Okay. Thread Grass 1 says, Burgos has thrown everyone under the bus. Yeah, I mean, he really did. He really did. So, let me just check back on the court feed here. Okay, nothing much happening there. The sound, let's put it on, make sure. I'm actually going to just bring it across here so I can monitor it. It's been 1,925 days since April 9th of 2018, when Grizelda and Dominic were murdered at the Father Charles McNaboe Park in Laredo, Texas. 1,925 days that their family has been waiting for justice to be served. That is a long time. And they, as we saw in the summary that I made for you, and in the trial, of course, if you were live with me, Tara, welcome. Grizelda's father and Dominic's grandfather has visited their memorials every Sunday since they were murdered. That's something like 266 times. Oh, man, I'm sure they cannot wait for this day. And I personally cannot wait for the victim impact statements, because that is when they're going to directly address Burgos. And we've already seen how embarrassed he gets sometimes. Sometimes it looks like he feels absolutely nothing, and other times, then, yeah, he looks really embarrassed, like he wants to crawl under the table. So if I look here, okay, I just quickly want to take this off so that I can really make this nice and big for you. I was looking here at what's the process. Oh, sorry, wait, I'm on the wrong. There we go. What is the process? Okay. So stages in a capital case, pre-trial. So that's already happened. Arrest, arraignment, preliminary hearing, grand jury, indictment, information, all of that, right? Hearing on pre-trial motions, intention to seek the death penalty. So that also happened before the trial even started, of course. And I believe that the victim's family has indicated that they would seek the death penalty. And I believe the recommendation is lethal injection. So, yes. Someone is saying, Kim Richards says, Texas is a hardcore death penalty state. You know what surprises me is that Juan David Ortiz, a serial killer, they didn't recommend the death penalty there. He got life without parole. He killed 4 sex workers. And there's another case that I've recently seen, which was Samuel Garcia. He pleaded guilty to a capital murder charge. He also got life without parole. So maybe that's why. I mean, Burgos is just hanging in there just to see if anyone will find him innocent. It seems not, sir. Jennifer Robinson, thank you so much. That's very cute. Thank you for your $4.99 super sticker. Really appreciate it. Complicated says, hello Grizzly, glad this is finally coming to an end. I don't think all jurors will agree on death penalty. He deserves it though. Okay, and if I missed one, I think I just missed one. Sorry, I just flew by. Esther, or Ether Bunny, sorry, says defense is going to say mitigating factor is the testosterone, etc. Medication led to his actions. Yeah. Are you meaning the closing statements now? Because they've already gone there. But, that, and then they focus on March 25th, 2018, saying that he didn't do that. That would be spider bite, insect sting, something, bee sting, all of that. Okay. So now, what happened in this trial was the guilt phase of the trial, jury selection, opening statements, prosecution's case, the defendant's case, closing statements, jury instructions, verdict, as we just saw. Penalty phase of the trial, aggravating circumstances, mitigating, victim impact statements, jury sentence recommendations, and sentencing. And then, because it's a death penalty case, if they recommend the death penalty, there's an automatic appeal. So, Yes. Over the years, I mean, sometimes people are on death row for like 29 years. On average, they say 15. But it could be 15 to 29, you know? So anyway. So consider that also. I think the jury's going to be considering all of those factors. Direct appeal, introduction, the appeal process. So let's see what happens after today, right? Oh, okay, Yolanda, see that trial, I didn't watch the whole trial. I've just seen little snippets. So Yolanda says, state requested death penalty for Ortiz. Families, okay, so the families requested life without parole. I know the families didn't indicate for death penalty, but okay, so they requested, yes, life without parole. State requested it. He didn't get it, though. So, you know, so I wonder if Burgos would. So they say introduction, the appeal process. Once a person is found guilty, the presumption of innocence is removed. The defendant now has the burden of showing that a critical mistake was made in the process that convicted him. Most of the review which occurs does not revisit factual issues decided at trial. Rather, the direct appeal deals with procedural issues. We've seen them bring up a lot of those as well throughout the trial. Last week they were going for us YouTubers covering the case and putting overlays on and discussing things as a community, which we have every right to do. They've done a lot of low blows in the case. I know the defense is just doing their job. I get it, but like, damn. Anyway, so they will for sure be appeals. Most of the review which occurs does not revisit factual issues decided at trial. Rather, the direct appeal deals with procedural issues. Some states have had time limits as short as 3 weeks for the admission of any new evidence after the conclusion of the trial. The Constitution does not require that a defendant be provided with a lawyer representing him throughout the appeals process. Even when represented, the lawyer must be aware of numerous procedural rules for filing appeals. If the rules are not precisely followed, issues may be lost forever from the appeals process. Yeah, Diana77 says, the mother stated they just wanted justice and whatever the jury decided was okay. Rocky says, did a medical examiner ever testify? Yes, Dr. Stern did, and the defense tried to impeach Dr. Stern not once, but twice. So yes, and they did explain, are you asking about the injection that Dominic got on his leg from March 25th? Because we don't know exactly what Burgos allegedly injected into his leg. We speculated, but they didn't specify, and they said they don't want to ruin the tissue sample they have without knowing exactly what to test for, because it could be more than 1,000 things. Tara, thank you for being a member for 3 months. So if rules are not precisely followed, issues may be lost forever from the appeals process. Motion for a new trial. Imagine that. Burgos trial all over again. Would you be able to do it? I'll do it. We will be here together. There will be roll call. I'll remember your names. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Oh my word. A post-judgment request that the court vacate the judgment and order a new trial for any various reasons, such as insufficient evidence, newly discovered evidence, or jury misconduct. In some jurisdictions, this motion is required before a party can file an appeal. In most cases, this motion is quickly denied. Sure, thank goodness. JJ says Ted Bundy spent 10 years on death row. Yes, indeed, JJ. And that was on old Sparky, the electric chair. That was hectic. I wrote a book on Ted Bundy, if you haven't checked it out. And I also have an audiobook because I narrated those books myself. Whoa, and that, like, he peed his pants. Ted Bundy was so scared, he peed his pants on the day. They had to, like, carry him there. I still wish that the electric chair was part of the equation, because I think that makes it for the inmate really scary, because they don't know on which day they're going to be executed. And in that way, oh man, that is scary. That is really punishment. My gosh. Okay, so yeah, let's hope no motion for a new trial and that will just be denied. Okay, no, but I'm just letting you know, we are committed over here. If there's a new trial for Burgos, we'll be here. Yeah, Gerardo says, as long as it's with a Grizzly crew, we can do anything. We've got stamina. We Grizzly Bears, remember? Olivia Aussie Chick, welcome to Grizzly $1 supporter. Okay, and so then, appeal to state's highest criminal court, a proceeding undertaken to reverse a decision by bringing it to a higher authority. The defendant submits the trial court's decision to a higher court for review and possible reversal. Then a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court for writ of certiorari. The Supreme Court can, at its discretion, decide to review the decisions of a lower court on federal issues. However, the Supreme Court only takes about 1% of the cases submitted for its review. And then post-conviction review. There's a petition to state trial court, an appeal to the state's highest criminal court, proportionality review, petition to the U.S. Supreme Court for writ of certiorari, and then federal habeas corpus. All of these things are part of a death penalty case. Teresa says, which Ted Bundy book did you read? The one I wrote. I wrote 4 books on serial killers, and I narrated all of them. They're on Audible. They're actually everywhere where you can find audiobooks and ebooks and paperbacks. But if you just want it, like, the easiest place to get it would be Kindle. And you could just search Grizelda K and it's there, or just go to my website and all the links are there for you. So, federal habeas corpus, petition to a federal district court. I'm just bullet pointing now. Evidentiary hearing, appeal to the Federal Court of Appeals, in bank review, petition to U.S. Supreme Court for writ of certiorari. I mean, there's a lot. This will put the family through a lot as well. That's also something to consider. To keep on seeing, let's say, if Burgos gets the death sentence, to all these appeals and procedures and all the court appearances and all that. Oh, man. And then clemency, pardon board, executive clemency or commutation. And then the last step, execution, is death row, the area of a prison where those who have been sentenced to death are confined. Death warrant, a paper typically signed by the governor or judge setting a date of execution. And as we've seen, like in the cases I just talked about, that shifts around a lot. The warrant is then served on the defendant and his attorney. Typically shortly before the execution, the inmate is moved to a cell closer to the death chamber and kept on 24-hour suicide watch. An execution, the carrying out of a death sentence by lethal injection, electrocution, lethal gas, hanging, or firing squad. Wow. That's true, Ruth. I heard when they do the injection, they have 3 needles, 3 people, 1 person push the first, second, and third, but they don't know which one has the medication. That way they don't know what. Exactly. I've also, in those books that I talk about, like the John Wayne Gacy one, I did a deep dive on the process for the lethal injection and how all those chemicals work, if you are interested in seeing that. Court has not started. If it had, we would be watching it. Right? Okay, just give me 1 second here. Okay. So, as you can see, a long process there. I'll put court on for you so that you don't worry that we miss anything. Let's just go like this. Okay. Let's make it bigger. Sorry. Just resizing it for you as I read your articles and things. Yes, Zoo Blue says, you could literally look at my website at the FAQs and your answer is there. Do Grizzly love Grizzly Bear very much? Yep. I do. I love Grizzly Bear so much, oh my word. Okay, let's do it like this. I mean, there's no movement in the court yet, but at least the cameras are on. Big day. Big day in Laredo, Texas. Let's go like this. And, where's my border? There we go. And, let's find a nice picture as well. There we go, we've still got this one here. Okay, these are the victims. That's what it's about, justice for them. Grizelda and Dominic Hernandez. KD2, welcome to Grizzly $1 supporter. Thank you for being a member. I also just quickly want to see something. Heather says, and they love G.
Good morning. As I had advised you last week that we had come to the end of the evidence presentation. It had come to a conclusion. I'm about to read you the court's charge. Please follow along or just listen carefully. In the cause 2018 CRA 852D1 in the state of Texas versus Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles, this is the court's charge on punishment. Members of the jury, you have found the defendant Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles guilty of the 2 counts of capital murder as alleged in counts 1 and 2 in the indictment. You are instructed that the defendant shall now be punished by confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life or by death. It is necessary for you to determine from all the evidence in the case the answers to certain special issues, which are as follows. Special issue number 1, whether there is a probability that the defendant would commit criminal acts of violence that would constitute a continuing threat to society. You shall answer special issue number 1, yes or no. The prosecution has the burden of proving that the answer to special issue number 1 should be yes, and it must do so by proving a yes answer to special issue number 1 beyond a reasonable doubt. If they fail to do so, you must answer special issue number 1 no. In deliberating special issue number 1, the jury shall consider all evidence admitted at the guilt or innocence stage and the punishment stage, including evidence of the defendant's background, character, and the circumstances of the offense that militates for or mitigates against the imposition of the death penalty. It is not required that the state prove special issue number 1 beyond all possible doubt. It is required that the state proof excludes all reasonable doubt that there is a probability that the defendant would commit criminal acts of violence that would constitute a continuing threat to society. You may not answer special issue number 1 yes unless you agree unanimously that the state has proven this fact beyond a reasonable doubt. You may not answer to special issue number 1 no unless 10 or more jurors agree. Members of the jury need not agree on what particular evidence supports a negative answer to special issue number 1. Only if the jury answers special issue number 1 yes, then you shall answer the following special issue number 2. Otherwise, do not answer special issue number 2. Special issue number 2. Whether, taking into consideration all of the evidence, including the circumstances of the offense, the defendant's character and background, and the personal moral culpability of the defendant, there is a sufficient mitigating circumstance or circumstances to warrant that a sentence of life imprisonment without parole rather than a death sentence be imposed. You are instructed that if a jury answers that a circumstance or circumstances warrant that a sentence of life imprisonment without parole rather than a death sentence be imposed, the court will sentence the defendant to imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life without the possibility of parole. Under the law applicable in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to confinement for life without parole in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, the defendant will be ineligible for release from the Department on parole. You shall answer special issue number 2 yes or no. You are instructed that you may not answer special issue number 2 no unless you agree unanimously. You may not answer special issue number 2 yes unless 10 or more jurors agree. Members of the jury need not agree on what particular evidence supports an affirmative finding on special issue number 2. In deliberating on special issues number 2, you shall consider all the evidence presented at the guilt or innocence stage of trial and the punishment stage of trial, including but not limited to evidence of the defendant's character and background and the personal moral culpability of the defendant, or any evidence that could serve as a basis for sentence less than death. If the jury returns an affirmative finding on special issue number 1 and a negative finding on special issue number 2, the court shall sentence the defendant to death. If the jury returns a negative finding on special issue number 1 or an affirmative finding on special issue number 2, the court shall sentence the defendant to confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life without parole. You are the exclusive judges of the facts proven, of the credibility of the witnesses, and of the weight to be given their testimony. but you are bound by the law as given by the court in these instructions and sworn to be governed thereby. In arriving at the answers to the above issues, it is not proper for you to determine the answers by lot, chance, or any other method than a full, fair, and free exercise of the opinion of each individual juror. The state has introduced evidence of extraneous crimes or bad acts other than the ones charged in the indictment in this case. This evidence was admitted only for the purposes of assisting you, if it does, in determining the proper punishment for the offense of which you have found the defendant guilty. You cannot consider the testimony for any purpose unless you first find and believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed such other acts, if any were committed. Our law provides that a defendant may testify in his own behalf if he elects to do so. This, however, is a privilege accorded a defendant, and in the event he elects not to testify, that fact cannot be considered as a circumstance against him. In this case, the defendant has elected not to testify, and you are instructed that you cannot and must not refer or allude to the fact throughout your deliberations, or take into consideration for any purpose whatsoever as a circumstance against the defendant. From time to time throughout the trial, the court has been called upon to pass on the question of whether or not certain offered evidence might properly be admitted. You are not to be concerned with the reasons for such rulings and are not to draw any inference from them. Whether offered evidence is admissible is purely a question of law. In admitting evidence to which an objection is made, the court does not determine what weight should be given such evidence, nor does it pass on the credibility of the witness. As to any offer of evidence that has been rejected by the court, you, of course, must not consider the same. As to any question to which an objection was sustained, you must not conjecture as to what the answer might have been or as to the reason for the objection. You are instructed that you are not to allow yourself to be influenced in any degree whatsoever by what you may think or surmise the opinion of the court to be. The court has no right by any word or any act to indicate any opinion respecting any matter of fact involved in the case. The court has not intended to express any such opinion, and if you have observed anything which you have or may interpret as the court's opinion, upon any matter of fact in this case, you must wholly disregard it. You are instructed that the statements of counsel made during the course of the trial or during the argument, if not supported by evidence, or statements of law made by counsel, if not in harmony with the law as stated to you by the court in these instructions, are to be wholly disregarded. You have been permitted to take notes during the testimony in this case. In the event any of you took notes, you may rely on your notes during your deliberations. However, you may not share your notes with the other jurors, and you should not permit the other jurors to share their notes with you. You may, however, discuss the contents of your notes with the other jurors. You shall not use your notes as authority to persuade your fellow jurors. In your deliberations, give no more and no less weight to the views of a fellow juror just because that juror did or did not take notes. Your notes are not official transcripts. They are personal memory aids, just like the notes of the judge and the notes of the lawyers. Notes are valuable as a stimulant to your memory. On the other hand, you might make an error in observing, or you might make a mistake in recording what you have seen or heard. Therefore, you are not to use your notes as authority to persuade fellow jurors of what the evidence was during the trial. Occasionally, during deliberations, a dispute arises as to the testimony presented. If this should occur, in this case, you shall inform the court and request that the court read the portion of disputed testimony to you from the official transcript. You shall not rely on your notes to resolve the dispute because those notes, if any, are not official transcripts. The dispute must be settled by the official transcript, for it is the official transcript rather than any juror's notes upon which you must base your determination of the facts and ultimately your verdict in this case. In deliberating on this case, you shall consider the charge as a whole and you must not refer to or discuss any matters not in evidence before you. You must not consider or mention any personal knowledge or information you may have about the facts or person connected with this case which is not shown by the evidence admitted in court. You shall not consult law books or anything not in evidence in this case. You are further instructed that you are not to be swayed by mere sentiment, conjecture, sympathy, passion, prejudice, public opinion, or public feeling in considering all the evidence before you and in answering the special issues. Any further communication must be in writing, signed by your presiding juror through the bailiff to the court. Do not attempt to talk to the bailiff, the attorneys, or the court regarding any questions you may have concerning the trial of the case. After argument of counsel, you will retire to the jury room to deliberate. When you have reached a verdict, you may use the attached forms to indicate your answers to the special issues, and your presiding juror should sign the appropriate form certifying your verdict. The verdict forms are attached, and you will proceed under my instructions. We will start off with the state. The state will open their closing arguments. They will then have a seat. The defense will then give you their closing arguments. They will finish their closing arguments, and then the state would have reserved some time to give you the final word. You may proceed.
Closing arguments for the last time.
May it please the court.
Yes, sir.
Counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good morning. In 9 days, July the 26th, it will be Dominic's birthday. He will be turning 7. And like many Texans, and like many Laredoans, the Hernandez family will go to his memorial like they do every year. And they will take him as gifts. This year, however, will be special on his birthday, because he'll receive the biggest gift of all. A gift from you. That a jury in Laredo, Texas is giving him and his mommy justice.
Objection, Your Honor.
Who's arguing, Your Honor? He will now be able to smile, run, laugh, and rest peacefully. Dominic has left so many clues during this case. It's amazing. His precious blood at the crime scene, his Tweety bird, his favorite train at Grandma's house. All you have to do is look, listen, and learn. And even though he's not here with us physically, he speaks to you. He speaks to you. He speaks to you through me. This case is not about me. It's not about the state. It's not about politics. It's about truth. It's about justice. It's about doing the right thing. It's about giving the right punishment. It's about protecting society. It's about accountability. It's about closure for the family. And it's about deterrence. It's about deterrence. This is not about religion. This is not about revenge. It's about the law. It is about the law. You know, when Mr. Boggs was in his opening, he went over there and puts his hands on Mr. Burgos and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burgos is a dead man. He is going to die." Death is certain for all of us. The only difference is that when Mr. Burgos planned and executed his own flesh and blood, an innocent baby, and the mother of that baby, he scheduled his own death. On April the 9th of 2018, he scheduled his own death. Deserve has nothing to do with this. He earned the sentence. Each and every one of you, each and every single one of you, are the last link for law enforcement. In the criminal justice process, everything that we've done since we came together at TAMIU, almost close to 400 people. Why? Why you? Like me, you took an oath to follow the law. Each and every one of you. We cannot do this alone. We cannot do this alone. You can give Dominic and Grizelda the justice that they deserve. You see the difference? What he earned is the death penalty. And what Dominic and Grizelda deserve is justice. So that when you carefully, callously plan and calculate the murder of a child, an innocent child and their mother, and you use your special skills, and you use your knowledge, and you hide in plain sight, there's consequences. That's the message you're going to send with your verdict.
Objection, Your Honor. Sending messages with a verdict.
You'll be given the court's charge and will be given the instruction with regard to what to do, and those are the things that you need to answer, the questions inside the charge, based on the instructions that I give you. Remember that when you receive the charge.
The evidence that we have brought you in the guilt and innocence phase proves beyond a reasonable doubt. It proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Burgos Aviles will probably commit future acts of violence in the society where he's going. You sat here. There are no circumstances, none, not one or a few or any evidence of mitigation where to justify a sentence of life without parole instead of death. You took an oath, and if you apply the law, if you apply the evidence, and you apply the facts, then you will answer yes on special issue, question number 1. And you will answer no on special issue number 2. Life is sacred. I agree when Mr. Boggs stood here on Monday and said, life is sacred. And what did he say? It's sacred to everyone in here. Well, we know who it's not sacred to. It's not sacred to this man. The story, after 3 weeks in trial, the story ends with you here today. Remember what I said in opening. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end to every story. Your story will end today. And again, you've answered the highest call of duty. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Boggs, this is still a big and important case. It sure is. To all of you, to the state, to the people of Texas, to the Hernandezes. And we thank you for your service. Remember the first day at TAMIU, we put this up. A true verdict render according to the law and the evidence, so help you God. A true verdict render according to the law and the evidence. The law and the evidence. We have worked hard in bringing you the facts and bringing you the evidence. And it shows the truth. It shows the truth. We have guided you. And you got it right in finding Mr. Burgos guilty. Your job is not done. The roadmap. How do you get to the right punishment? Remember, and all of you lived through this during the time that we brought you here and you were selected for jury, to sit on this jury. What evidence do you consider today when you go deliberate in answering the special issue? Y'all remember this chart? We went over it and over it and over it. You all know how to work through this chart. You look at the evidence. Not the guilty verdict. That's already been done. But you get the evidence from the first phase that you can consider, plus all of the evidence that we brought you in this phase that you can consider in answering special issue question number 1. The state must prove, just like we did in the guilt and innocence phase, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that there's a probability that Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles would commit criminal acts of violence that would constitute a continuing threat to society. A probability that he'll commit criminal acts of violence that constitute a continuing threat to society. So what do we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt? Not that he will. Not that he will. Listen to that. But that he probably will. That's our burden. That he probably will. There's that word. And how do you make that decision? How can you say that somebody will probably continue to commit acts of violence in the society where he's going? And we talked about the society. Where's he going? He's going to prison. And we all know that there's what did Mr. Fitzpatrick say? That prison is a society within what? A society. Society within society, where people go and work, where they keep Texans safe. It's not a perfect society. It's not a perfect system. We know that. But we will now, and I will explain to you all of the evidence, all of the truth, all of the facts that we brought you in order to answer that question. That we prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he probably will. That he's dangerous? We know that. We already all know that. So what do you consider? And here they are. This is what you will consider. The circumstances, the calculated nature, his forethought and deliberateness that he exhibited, the existence of any prior criminal record, his age, his personal circumstances at the time of the offense. Was he acting under duress? Psychiatric evidence. We know the answer to that one, and we know the answer to the duress. We know the answer to the circumstances. The calculated nature, you all saw when he started doing this, and his character evidence. Multiple attempts on Dominic's life. Think about how many times he wanted to end baby Dominic's life. Think about it. Think about it as I go through this argument, and I'll give you our version of how many times he tried to take his life. But think carefully how many times he did. 27 stab wounds to Grizelda Hernandez, 2 stab wounds to Dominic. Rapid but not instant death. Little baby Dominic bled. He was alone when he bled. He was looking up at the sky when he bled. His own biological son, the weapon of choice, well, we know what it was. We know what it is. We never found it. Because who controls the crime scene? Who decides what to do with the evidence? He decided what to do with the evidence. Remember an opening statement. I told you that the state was going to bring you evidence to look into his heart. And to judge a person, you can't look at their appearance. You have to look into their heart. I told you that we were going to bring you evidence of the text messages that he was sending before, during, and after the murders of 2 innocent people. What was he doing during that time? He was sexting. That is so disturbing. That is so upsetting. And he did it all while serving his country. There was never any provocation by Grizelda. You have the evidence. Go through the text messages. She didn't want to cause him any trouble. But did you ever see any attempt in all those messages saying, hey, how can I help? What do you need? Will $500 help out right now? Something. No. Instead, he went into a plan to end the threat of 2 truly innocent people. And what did he do? What did he do when he was hiding there in plain sight? How do you hide in plain sight? Think about that. How do you hide in plain sight? When everybody there is law enforcement and you're dressed as law enforcement, but yet you're the danger within the law enforcement. That's how he did it. Dominic's age, the gruesome murder scene, the painful deaths. Imagine. It wasn't swift. It wasn't swift. It wasn't pulling the trigger one time. This was up close. This was personal. 27. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 times. And then once through the baby's chest. And then one through his neck. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. You saw Dr. Hernandez's testimony. You'll have the autopsy reports. Study them. Study them. When you want to imagine the type of pain that this young mother sustained at his hands, look at it. Look at what he did to her. Look at her defensive wounds. Look at the way he left her. He attacked her from behind. He ambushed her. She didn't know. She didn't know that that was the last day that was the last day of her life. I mean, she was going to go meet a law enforcement officer. She thought they were good. This is how he left her. Listen, the state of Texas did not create this situation. We didn't create the facts or the circumstances or the evidence. As hard as he tried to disturb, to stage, to alter the crime scene, we found it. Now we're handing you the baton. We've brought it to you. What did Dr. Fernandez say? The person who did this had knowledge. The person who did this had knowledge. This man had the knowledge. And what did I say in opening about clarity? After those 27 stab wounds and killing this innocent mother, he walks the 20 yards over to the stroller, gets in front of this little baby, and it's like he's looking in the mirror, Mr. Boggs. He's looking right at himself. And he opens that buckle, takes the little phone out of his hands, puts it down, picks him up, takes him over to the grass, lays him down. Picks up the shirt. He wanted to get it right. He picks up this one of Dominic's favorite shirts. And he pierces, aiming for his heart. And he doesn't stop there. He doesn't stop there. When little baby Dominic is still alive, he goes for the jugular. How long did it take baby Dominic to die? With every beat of his heart, he would lose blood. What was going through his mind? Where's mommy? Where's my mommy? This man was a stranger. The death was rapid, but not instant. He lost blood with every heartbeat. First, he would have gone into shock. 10 minutes to die. And the person who did this had knowledge. The calculated nature. I would submit that when Grizelda advised Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles, remember she did that practice message in December? Say, hey, I'm sorry, nothing, I don't want to mess you up, but I really need help. I'm going through hell. I can't pay for school, I need help for daycare. Then on February 1st, she fills out the application. But when he finds out that this is coming, the wheels start turning. You have a choice. Do I man up and do the right thing and accept responsibility for this little innocent baby that I fathered? No. Let me go this way. Let me end him. Because he doesn't matter. Every life matters. Every human life matters. His life matters. But he planned it. And then you start seeing it on March 25th at Winfield Park. He knows that there's an appointment for child support. He sets up the meeting on the and then the Winfield Park incident. Remember April the 4th. What does he do? He goes to Snapchat. We talked about that in Guilt and Innocence. This is all going to calculation. This is all going to planning. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to go kill my son and his mother. It doesn't happen like that. It takes planning. It takes calculations. Selecting when, where, and how he was going to do it. He scouts behind the church on April 7th. Remember from FBI Agent Master's report, he goes behind the church on Del Mar on April the 7th to look at where to get rid of evidence. Then he's trying to set up the meeting with Grizelda. It's set up on the 8th or the 9th. He's involved in the scheduling of the assignments for Border Patrol. What did Agent Dennison tell us? That there was Carrizo eradication going on, right? And that they had to take the cameras down. Who knew this? Who knew this? He knew it. The perfect location to stage the crime. What he didn't bank on was that DPS was going to have a camera on one of the trails. That camera that caught him in Kilo Unit. Remember? When he was leaving at 10:10 in his Kilo Unit? And he murders him on the 9th. He used considerable amount of time to calculate and plan the murders. Forethought, deliberateness, it all started with the child support. He gets served with the petition, with the notice of to set up to set up in order to have those meetings, to start having those negotiation conferences. And you remember when she texts him, hey, you missed your meeting. He had other plans. The injection site. Where and how he killed them. The manner and means of the death in cutting their carotid and their jugular. How he ambushed how he lured them to that dirt trail, using his position, infiltrating the investigation, utilized time to his advantage. He contaminates the crime scene. He destroys evidence. And you see the video. What does he do when he gets in the car? Starts to lick. If you need to look at it again, it's there. But when he's sitting in the car, which arm is he licking? The right arm. The right arm. He's taking anywhere that he thinks he has blood, he's wiping it. All of that evidence you will utilize to answer special issue question number 1 with a resounding yes. A unanimous yes. It's clear. It's clear. We've brought it to you. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Not that he will commit future acts of violence, that he probably will. That's what we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And we've given you a mountain of evidence that you could use to answer special issue number 1. Then you move to special issue number 2. The state, we don't have this burden. Taking into consideration all the circumstances of the offense, once again. We don't leave that. You consider the circumstances. His character, which we've shown you. And we're going to talk more about his character. But take that into consideration. His background, his moral culpability. That these circumstances warrant that a sentence of life imprisonment without parole rather than death be imposed. Everything that Mr. Boggs promised you in his opening, they failed. And we're going to talk more about that. Stay focused throughout this process. And just like you hold me and my team to our promises, hold him to his promises. Hold him and his team to their promises that they come up here and made. No mitigation in answering this question. Is there any mitigation? If you follow the law, if you follow the evidence, the answer is simple. No. There's none.
Judge, objection. I believe this violates a pretrial rule.
Could you approach with that? I don't remember that specifically.
Oh my word, okay, they're approaching. So, what I'm quickly going to do is just switch to the local news coverage because their logo doesn't block some of the what they're showing there. So just give me a second. Okay, sure, this is very powerful. My word. Yeah, there's Burgos. I mean, I feel terrible for Jaden. Some people in the chat are saying, who's Jaden? Grizelda's eldest son. He's 12 years old now. And he's there. So it is hectic for him to hear all of this, of course. But man, District Attorney Isidro Alaniz describing things the way that he is so powerful for the jury. I mean, even counting the 27 times that he stabbed Grizelda That's a lot. You could see it and feel it. It was like, oh my word, when he was demonstrating this. And twice for baby Dominic. And then he showed the shirt. Oh my word. Marie says, gee, the DA sure is a grizzly. His presentation is just perfect, just the way you do them. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Masterclass 101. It's really, really good. So now the defense team has objected 3 times now during this closing. And this one is about, he said, Bog said, I think this is in violation of a pretrial motion, I think he said. I think that's what I heard. But let's see. He's talking about mitigating factors. Unusual, but allowed. Yes. Okay. So
We submit
here we go.
that whatever evidence was brought for mitigation, that you can still answer no. Weigh it. Consider it. I'm not telling you not to. Analyze it. Analyze all the evidence. And make your decision. It's your individual decision. And then collectively, unanimously, put no. We, throughout this entire process, have brought you consistent, credible, and corroborated evidence. Consistent, credible, corroborated, one layer after another, so that you can make the decision. Let's go over that. Timothy Fitzpatrick. Now, let's make it very clear. Where does the defense want you to send Mr. Burgos? Where do they want you to send him? Life without the possibility of parole. So he could think about what he'd done, so that he can get punished for what he did. Really? Really, Mr. Boggs? We brought you Mr. Fitzpatrick, okay? 19 years or 21 years with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in the corrections to show you what life in prison without the possibility of parole is. And what is it? Really? What is it? Recreational sports, education services, contact visitation, put up to 10 people on there, 4 hours per visit, blow out birthday candles, color your coloring books. You want a job, just apply, sign up. You get to move around unescorted around campus. You're in general population, you need a counselor, go see a counselor. Cable TV. They want to joke about the Price is Right. This is no joking matter. It's not. And it doesn't end there. Tablets, emails, music, subscriptions, religious services. In a dorm of, what did he say, 45 or 46 people, he'll be living there. If he needs outside medical care, we'll take him so he can get medical care. Oh, and you get the cafeteria access. Sounds like he's going to college. That's what it sounds like. That's who they want to send him. Is that punishment for killing an innocent baby? His innocent mother? In a vicious and a brutal murder? Really? No. No. Now, if he wants to look in the mirror, let him do it on death row. There's a mirror in that cell. He'll have time to think. That's where he belongs. In an 8x10 cinder block cell, 23 hours locked down. That's where he'll get to think about what he did.
Again, Your Honor, objection, or argument for specific punishment is supposed to focus on special issues.
Argument. I don't think it's.
Ms. Continue, move forward, please.
Angelica Hernandez. You saw the pain. Angelica, the rest of her family will never be the same. They'll never be the same. She had the courage to come up here and tell you. And when I asked her, how old would your sister be today? She looked at you and she said she's frozen at 27. She's frozen at 27. And Mary Hernandez, the mother, freezes her room from that day. And that they go in there to reflect. Their lives did matter. They continue to matter. And life without the possibility of parole does not address that. Joshua Nunez, I don't remember, 16, 19, 18-year officer. What did he tell you? He sees the crime every single day. He sees the crime. He had to go and identify the body of his cousin and had to go and tell the rest of the family about it. Traumatized. You saw him. A man who has worked crime scenes. You saw him, how much trauma. Jose Luis Macias. Mr. Macias has no dog in this fight. Okay? When Mr. Boxon is opening threw in the psychosis, what Burgos didn't know back then was what Macias came and told you. At this trial. And you have it. That on April the 10th, when he was taken to Webb County Jail, there was observed no delusions and no psychotic symptoms. Forget about the testosterone. Forget about the phentermine. There was no psychosis. He can come up here in a little while and say it 100 times. He was normal. There was no psychotic behavior caused by those hormones. The classic blame game. You know what? It was the doctor's fault that he did this. No, it wasn't. Wasn't the doctor's fault, Mr. Boggs? Was it? Accountability. A grown man. Oh, it's because his mother didn't want him at birth. She had postpartum depression. But what does Mr. Burgos come up here and say? Well, she was insecure. She was this, she was that. He grew up in Florida, married his high school sweetheart. There's nothing there. The childhood doesn't come into play. The man who he is, that is who you're judging. He had no active psychosis, no hallucinations, no signs of mental decomposition. And what was he concerned with? He was, and what were the words out of his own mouth when he got in the patrol car? This is fucking embarrassing. You guys are embarrassing me. And when he's talking to Reyes and Elizondo, you guys are fucking embarrassing me. This is a big embarrassment. Everybody at the station is already going to hear about it. He says it in the car. He says it at the station. When he gets to the jail, he tells Macia, this is embarrassing. And then when his dad comes up here, he says, this is all over the media, all over the world. This is embarrassing. Really? What about the little baby that was killed and his mother? Stop thinking about yourself. He was normal. We brought you Dr. Dagoberto Gonzalez, a decorated Air Force physician with experience of administering and prescribing testosterone amphetamine since 2013. Arimidex as well. He refuted everything that Dr. Gupta came and said. Okay? Who are you going to trust? Dr. Gupta or what Dr. Gonzalez said? Because you decide if you believe some, none, or all of the testimony of the experts that were brought. You could take Dr. Gonzalez's testimony to the bank. Testosterone does not cause psychosis. The combination of the three do not cause psychosis. The dosages were within normal ranges. The lab results were at the lower end of the range, and the 11 physician screenings were all normal.
10 minutes on your first hour.
There's industry safeguards. The phentermine extended use is normal. Remember the example he gave of using Arimidex, which was not prescribed for that, but that you could use. I forgot what he said, but there's that off use, right? That the benefits in other ways. He used, I think, Ozempic as an example. No psychosis. He has prescribed this thousands of times. And I asked Dr. Gupta the same thing. In all your 25 years, 27 years that Dr. Gupta was licensed, have you ever seen psychosis in testosterone in your patients? No, I haven't, Mr. Alaniz. What about amphetamine? No, I haven't. There was 3 cases worldwide that Dr. Gonzalez found, and under very, what he said, extreme situations, did the phentermine cause psychosis. Why? Because it's not there, folks. It's not there. I don't care how many concoctions Mr. Boggs sits there and makes. It's not going to happen. Because the science doesn't lie. That it causes anger, that was the worst that came out. Dr. Gonzalez says, well, it can elevate your anger. You get emotional, anxious, all of those things. And of course, if phentermine does cause psychosis, it's at the onset, in combination with fen-phen, or there's an overdosage where you're taking 4 to 5 times of the prescribed level. Those were the situations in which phentermine causes psychosis. Ladies and gentlemen, do not follow their rabbit trails. Do not go for their smoke screens.
Objection to the denigration of defense counsel.
It's argument, Your Honor. Stay focused. Stay focused. He was, and most importantly, he was absolutely not poisoned. Absolutely not poisoned. They didn't like that response. You saw. They didn't like it. But it's the truth. That's what we're here for. The truth. Remember this, we acknowledge the loss and grief. Everyone condemns and understands how lawful this crime is. He said in openings, all of us, I believe in this room, believe in the sanctity of life. There is no doubt about it. We know who doesn't believe in the sanctity of life. He's sitting right there. He also said he has committed no criminal acts of violence in the 5 years he's been incarcerated leading up to the trial. You will hear from jailers who will describe him as a communicative, easy, quiet, and inmate who gives them no problems. You know what? It's all by design. He knows. This is classic. When they bring Elizondo up there, the retired jailer, and they ask her what books was he reading. What did she say? Harry Potter and psychology books. Psychology books is what he was reading. Also the Bible. There was some Bibles he was reading, religious stuff. He is on his best behavior because he knows what's at stake. Ronald has aspirations. Remember that one? Ronald has aspirations and hopes to continue his career in his border patrol. When his dad drives around and sees a border patrol trucks, that's what he thinks about. Oh, what my son lost. Opportunities that my son lost. What about Grizelda's opportunities? Her aspirations, her hopes. And what about Dominic's dreams? What about his opportunities? He'll never have them. He'll never have them. Gupta, we went over his testimony. He was found in violation by the medical board, but I was able to get some good information out of him. And it ends up at the very same conclusion. And against what the defense promised you, that he was poisoned by his doctor. I asked Dr. Gupta that question, and he said, no, Mr. Alaniz, that's not a fair statement. The records are there, folks. Look at them, okay? Dr. Howard Campbell, you remember him from University of Texas at El Paso? What was he? He was a drug trafficking expert. He had no business here, folks. I told him that his information was important, his studies were valuable, but not for this case. And what did he fall back on? Well, I talked to people at the supermarket. I talked to carne asadas, these border patrol agents, and they're about machismo, steroids, barbecues, beer, side chicks. Well, do you have that data, doctor? No, well, I don't have it with me. Well, do you have those? Do you do a questionnaire? No, I just ask. Really? Really? Is that what we're going with, folks? But he did make it a point to talk about chivalry. And chivalry, when I showed him the photos of what Ronald Anthony did to his son and to the mother of his son, and he said the right thing. That is not chivalry. So remember when he talked about we're going to bring you this culture and show you. Failed. Not true. Psychosis, not true. His childhood trauma, not true. Go back to the evidence. If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Who does this apply to? Dr. Mark Cunningham, their expert. Where is Dr. Cunningham? 2,237 miles away in Seattle. That's how far it is to Huntsville. Sitting behind a computer screen, crunching his numbers, like if he knows what's best for Texas and for Texans. It's not that easy, folks. It's not that easy. We have people on the front lines in these prisons. Lives depend on it. And what did he say when asked? Well, I usually can tell with the first phone call if I'm going to be able to determine serious violence. He said that. You heard him. Really? Just in one phone call? One of the things that jumps out about Cunningham's data is how old it is. Remember when he was pressed right off the bat, how defensive he got about, hey, well, your book says, well, hey, hold on. My book's 10 years old. So don't 10 years old. You were bragging about your book to Mr. Boggs. Now when I ask you if I could read page 112 of your book, you say, well, my book's 10 years old. Can you imagine going to college, first day of class, you sit down and they give you a book that's 10 years old? It's unreliable. It's unreliable. I saw a date on one of those slides that said 1975. Really? 2002, 1991. The most disturbing part about his studies is that Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon, Missouri, Georgia, federal law. They just forgot Alabama. They might as well throw that in there too. What do they have to do with Texas? Nothing. Nothing. How scripted was that testimony? How scripted was it? And the most important thing about his testimony was he's a psychologist, folks. And he didn't even bother to interview this man, Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles, for his characteristics. Hey, don't you think it's important to sit down in front of the man that you're going to make such a strong opinion about and talk to him? That's not important. Well, it is important, folks. Maybe not to him. In his charts, and they're going to come here and they're going to just build up his testimony, but hold him accountable. How do you explain that if you use a gun, you get a -1 on his scoring system? And if you kill multiple victims, guess what? 0. That doesn't affect your predictability. But if you use a knife or a sharp edge, it's not even considered. No, that doesn't factor in. Dude, he stabbed this poor lady 27 times. Don't you think that should be put into your formula somewhere, that he used a knife? He used a knife. That he cut his son's throat using a knife. Killing your own family member, does that go into your formula? No, that's not a variable that goes into consideration. The severity was not considered. When asked about the video interview to look at his behavior, you're a psychologist. Don't you think it's important to look at the behavior of the subject that you're going to opine on? Well, I fast forwarded that section. Come on, man. No, that's wrong.
Objection. The state fast forwarded through their own video for this juror.
Never did, Your Honor. Never did. We brought you everything.
The jury is going to have all of the evidence, all the evidence that has been submitted and admitted into the evidence. It will take that into account when deliberating under my instructions. Please remember that as best as you can.
What did he say? I'm not testifying for the defense. I was called by the defense. He was argumentative about everything. 48 escapes. You know about that, Dr. Cunningham? Yes, but that means like they walk off campus and that's an escape. Really? Minimizing. No statistics on prison escapes. We asked them, do you have any information on prison escapes since 1974 that you could share with the jury? No, I don't. Why? You have the privilege to ask why he doesn't have that information. And then he says, on one of the questions, and he's not even here for that, he says, well, he was high on high doses of testosterone amphetamine that contributed to his rage. Those around the interview questions? Really? You're not even here for that. He was backed up in a corner, and he throws out Dr. Gupta's. Look for the signs, folks. He did agree that prisons are not 100% safe or secure. How? And like, I trust Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick told it like it is, right?
Objection to the
Sustained.
He did.
These are
He
those
did.
rules.
Fitzpatrick's testimony was credible. He brought you facts. He brought you information. Prisons are not 100% proof, right? Why? Because they're run by people. People are fallible. People are calculating. People are conniving. People plan. The escape came up with Dr. Cunningham, but don't pay attention to that. That's an anomaly. That's an anomaly on that escape. No, it's not. That's reality. That's what it is. And 5 people died because of that. That came out from the witness stand.
objection talking about Gonzalo Lopez.
I never mentioned the name, Your Honor. I talked about an escape.
Mr. Alaniz, please wait till I give my ruling before you respond.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's move on. This argument, let's move on. Let's keep it within the confines of the
What did he say?
admissible evidence.
He finally agreed, after being shown his book, that he agreed that direct evaluative contact with a capital defendant is considered the best practice and should be requested by the mental health professional in all cases. And he violated that #1 rule from his own books. But they'll tell you, well, that's not what he was going to do. But it's in his book. Follow the book. On April the 9th, was Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles a low-risk person for committing serious acts of violence? Looking at all his characteristics on that day, was there any way of even imagining that this man would have done what he did? No. Because statistics don't work. You're dealing with humans. The more states that he put into his pot, his melting pot, the higher the numbers go, and the lower the percentage goes for risk. It's just this, moving around numbers. That's what they're doing. Commander Jose Hernandez, they brought him here to tell you what? That for 5 years, he's been a model inmate. Well, I'll tell you what, I did take from Dr. Cunningham. Remember that example he said? There's a difference when you're driving with your dad and when you're driving with your friends. That's all it is. That's all Mr. Burgos is doing right now at the jail. He's on his best behavior, right? Because the jail staff, Commander Hernandez, Lieutenant Elizondo, those are the people that are like his dad, right? So he's on his best. That's all he showed. Again, psychology books that Burgos is requesting. What did Mr. Ronald Anthony Burgos' father come and say? He was in denial, folks. He comes here and must say at least 10 times how proud he is of his son, that he will continue to be proud of his son, and that he loves his son. Then when I ask him, did you see the mountain of evidence that we brought you? Did you see it? What did he say? It was all circumstantial. There was no direct evidence. And my son is losing his opportunities. And what does he say? Sin originates from who? From Satan, he said. Sin originates from Satan. And when I asked him, is killing your own flesh and blood, your own baby, an evil act? He said yes. He said yes. Never visited Dominic's memorials, never visited Grizelda's memorial. I'm just so upset that this is being covered all over the news. I'm just so upset that my son lost his opportunities. And I'll never believe he could do this to anybody. It's not reality, folks. You can answer no. Special issue number 2. You can answer no. You don't want to be in a situation where you say, we should have, we could have. You don't. Down the road, you don't want to be in that position. We had the chance, and we didn't. Stay focused. He's going to come up here now, give their argument, use your common sense, hold them to the evidence, hold them to the facts, hold him accountable. To show that you deserve mercy, you must first give it to others. Listen to that. Listen to that. You must first give mercy to others. What mercy? What kindness did Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles give on April the 9th of 2018 when he stabbed Grizelda 27 times? No clarity when he walked over to take his son out of the stroller, when he put him down. Both of their organs, remember, both of their organs were bleached. They bled out. Baby Dominic took more than 10 minutes to bleed out. What mercy? What mercy did he give to these people? To these innocent people? Stay focused. Thank you, Your Honor.
We have 17 minutes left.
Yes, sir.
Getting back. Because we have still a good amount of time, I'm gonna, if anybody wants to step out quickly, I'd like to be able to get that done now. So please take about 5 minutes and get that done. Please go out and we will come right back.
Oh my word. That was incredible. So the judge said, what, we have 17 minutes left, is it? Why does he say that? Is that from what he allocated him? So now they're going to take a little break, which the judge is be back in 5, but I think it means 17 minutes. Right? Wow. I put this picture here because as a compliment to District Attorney Isidro Alaniz. He's like a shark. And he's just like zoning in there on Burgos and his team. He's like, okay, really? Really? The shade was good. The roasting, good. The points made, excellent. That was the best closing statement I've ever seen. How about you? Damn. I mean, We could go back and watch more of it if you want. While we wait, I could monitor on this side. Wow. It was so phenomenal. What was your favorite? Tell me. Molly Cuddle says, applaud to you, DA. If the district attorney, Isidro Alaniz, ever watches Grizzly True Crime, sir, you're invited. You are invited to spend some time with us here. Oh, my word. For an interview. Oh, my word. I'd be so honored. What an excellent closing by the DA. I think that, I mean, everything he did, it was poetic almost, because he literally highlighted every single very important point, and at the same time roasted where roasting was required. Oh, damn, cameraman, what's happening? Oh, that camera is shaking now. Are you okay, cameraman? Darlene says he didn't want any of his family in court because he didn't want them to hear the truth, and they'd been there and listened. He can no longer control the narrative. Yeah. L. Dot says fantastic roast. That was like jaw on the floor, incredible. There's nothing I could even say during it. Just like, whoa, just watching all of this. And I know that it was very traumatizing to see the 27 stabs demonstrated. However, very powerful. Because, you know, in true crime cases, they might say, oh, stab 5 times, stab 30 times, stab whatever. The number's always just said, right? But to actually demonstrate, I don't know if you guys ever saw Tristan Bailey's case. Aiden Fucci was the killer in that case. And thank you so much, Kimberly Wolf. And when the family made their victim impact statements, one of her sisters had a glass and then these little blue stones. And she put a stone into this, like a vase, for every single stab wound that Tristan Bailey received. And there was a lot. I can't actually remember how many. I think that was like 114 or something. It was a lot. So she just sat there and one stone at a time just put that in. And I was actually thinking, while the closing statement was being made here, I was like, maybe I should go get like a cup just to show you guys like what this guy did. And it was so weird. It was like a bit surreal because I was thinking, mate, that would be very powerful to like show, you know, even though we're just sitting here as a community, right? The jury's not watching us. And then he did that. And I'm like, oh my word, he's demonstrating exactly how terrible that really is. 27's a lot. April Major says, Grizzly True Crime. Grizzlies eat sharks for breakfast. Yes. Wow. 147. Oh my gosh. 147 for Tristan Bailey. And that was a very, very powerful victim impact statement. I cannot wait for these victim impact statements. So I think Boggs right now, I mean, at first he was like, what? Like, okay, objection. And he looked, you know, we're just reading a bit of body language there, just like, oh my word. Okay, wow. He's like really full throttle. And then the roast, it was like, objection. I think there were 6 objections. Albin says 17 minutes for rebuttal. Oh, okay. Is that what's left later? So out of whatever was allocated, there's a little break now. The defense will do their closing and then rebuttal. Okay. So I just think Boggs was taken a little bit by surprise. It looked like Thea was panicking just a tad. They just like, okay, object now. Okay, no, hello. You know, it was really quite something to see. I'm sure that Grizelda and Dominic's family are immensely proud of District Attorney Isidro Alaniz. You can absolutely see that he's 100% on their side. It's a beautiful thing. Crystal Ann says, one of the best closing statements I have heard. Okay, 114. Yeah, interesting. If it's 114, then my memory serves me well. 114. Yeah, okay. So, someone said, does he hear the music of Jaws? Maybe. And Boggs, I think now he's like, oh crap. Like, what is he gonna... How will he pull himself together now and confidently deliver his closing arguments? After that, I mean, would you like to be in his shoes? I sure wouldn't. Caroline says we'll need a stiff drink. I don't drink. I just drink boba tea, which Mr. Grizzly brought for me. You guys know, especially if you're on my other channel or on Patreon. Love this. So Mr. Grizzly got me boba tea, and that's about all that I need now. That was great. So yeah, Boggs. I did really enjoy a little bit. Selfish enjoyment there was the shade thrown at the Dr. Cunningham, because that presentation, whew, we need a certificate for getting through that. It was so much information. TMI. Sylvie, welcome. Okay, thank you, Pernil. Okay, so my memory served me correct. 114. Damn. And when Tristan Bailey's sister put the little stones in the cup like that, I'm trying to see what I could use. I can't really. It was so powerful. You need to go check it out if you've never seen it before. Sure. Okay. So SLS says that was so incredibly powerful, and the DA has the perfect sounding voice for it. I could listen to him all day. I know, right? I could listen to him all day too. Like, let the closing arguments be all day. Let's do that recap and presentation all day. Yes. So Catherine says Boggs will just go round and round in confusing circles. I think he's probably going to say something like, okay, while the district attorney is up there being all machismo, you know that this man's life is on the line. And I think he'll go there, you know? A little bit of guilt trip. Saying that he's been a model citizen, inmate at the Webb County Jail. Even through the riots and through everything, Burgos was so well behaved. He was just in his cell reading Harry Potter. Harry Potter and psychology books. Okay, he was maintaining his relationships with the community, which would be, in reality, talking down to his wife, his mother, and girlfriend, and telling his sons how to live their lives. Get lean, you know, eat protein. You got to be a better version of me. Well, that's pretty easy. Right, Burgos? So, yes. I actually just saw that now. And just hold on 1 second. I just want to see something. So we have 13,624 people in this chat. And Juan says, why do you keep avoiding my question? Now, I've only seen that, but do you really think that these two eyeballs can watch 13,624 people talking? Like, I'm trying my best to just see anything but a blur. Roberta Perez, thank you so much for your sticker. I really appreciate it. Joanne says, extremely sad and unnecessary loss of lives. Oh man, T-Tree says, I want to sweep Jaden away and hug him forever. I feel so sad for Jaden. If you guys don't know who Jaden is, Grizelda's eldest son, 12 years old now. You could see him many times. They showed him on camera and he looks distraught. Honestly, this is terrible for him and would re-traumatize him. Yes. Okay, so Doodle Mom says praise for Jaden and the family. And we've heard that Jaden is struggling a lot with separation anxiety, with PTSD. So it must be so strange for him, you know, being 12, he was 6 at the time, to turning 7, right? So to look at someone like Burgos and be like, damn, like that is the face of a monster. That is what it looks like. I mean, Burgos, if you just first glance, he looks pretty normal. You know what I mean? Coastal Butterfly, family testimony was their victim statements, in my opinion. Well, we'll see. It's supposed to be part of this process now. Okay. Now, let me try to see, because I've just had about 1,000 comments fly by. Thank you. If I miss any of your stickers, I'm very, very sorry. I'm trying my best here. Kimmer Wolf, thank you so much. That's also why we got mods. So, see, Erin, thank you so much. You say thank you at K Baker. There you go. Thank you. Eliza Joy, thank you for your sticker as well. So I can't wait for this. I mean, okay, now I should have kept time. Wait, that was at 17 parts. So it's already been 10 minutes, I think. It's been 10 minutes. The judge said 5, so we're right on time. They will be back probably in 10 to 15 from now. Yes. Diane says, it's important for this young man needs to understand for himself in some way. Yeah, I mean, it would bring closure, but it's terribly traumatic. He was so excited for a little brother. So he lost his mother and his little brother. It's terrible. Okay, so they're back. Let's see what happens now. Sound is not on yet. Waiting for the jury to enter the room. I think the judge, look. What would you describe his face as? He looks shook. He's like, damn, that was powerful. Alyssa de la Cruz, welcome, welcome. Mama Bear and Papa Bear says Jaden is a very strong young man to be sitting in the courtroom with his family. He did want a little brother. Yes, that's what Grizelda's family testified. He was so excited to have a little brother. When Grizelda was pregnant, he would kiss her stomach and be like, oh my word, he's so excited to have a little brother. So to have his little brother and his mom taken away. When Dominic was only 18 months old, his mom was only 27. And Jaden was only 6. Shame, man. Alyssa, welcome. I can't imagine it. Marie says he was at the age that Dominic would turn in a few days when he lost his mama and little bro passed. Yeah. That must also be quite something to process, huh? To think that Dominic would be turning 7 now on June 26th. Damn, Truth, thank you so much for your $50 sticker. That's so cute. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Elizabeth Grogan says, I remember watching the sister, this is of the Tristan Bailey case, you guys putting the blue stones in the glass. I mean, I'll never forget that. There's some victim impact statements and, of course, closing arguments and things that are so powerful, you'll never forget it. I don't think I'll ever forget this this closing statement that we just saw right here. You'll see me refer to it in other trials that we watch together, because we will watch many trials together, and I do cover many cases on this channel. So if you've enjoyed my coverage and you're new here, welcome. I hope that you have or will subscribe and that you will hit the bell so you get all the notifications and you don't miss out chatting with all of us here. We've so enjoyed welcoming lots of new people into our community, and there's a lot from Laredo, Texas here now, and we hope you stay with us. Welcome. Carol Clark says defense needs to accept this proper beatdown. I'm just like, I would be really so scared right now being Mr. Boggs. I would probably hand it over to Eduardo Pena. Eduardo, you take it. Because Eduardo, I don't think he'll be scared. I think he'll be like, okay, now let me tell you again how unreliable those cell phone towers are. And that this man's life is on the line. Eduardo would say that. So let's see. Deep breaths, everyone. Here we go.
There are two things that I agree entirely with Mr. Alaniz about. The first is that this was an unforgivable act, completely unforgivable. I don't want anyone here in that jury room or anyone here to think that anything we're doing says that we're asking for forgiveness for Ronald. What we are asking is that he be punished for the rest of his life. That is what we are asking for. Now, the second thing that I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Alaniz is that life is sacred. Now, and every life is sacred, which is what you heard Mr. Alaniz follow up with, his life is sacred. Every life. Dominic's life was sacred, Grizelda's life was sacred, but that means everyone's life is sacred. We're either all children of God or no one is a child of God, is what I would say to you. Now, I opened and started, and Mr. Alaniz was correct in that I believe I put my hands on the shoulders of Ronald and said, this man is going to die in prison no matter what decision you make. And that is true to this day. No matter what decision, he is never going to be free again. I have to look at my notes, I apologize. The question now that I want to pose to you is whether we strap Mr. Burgos Aviles, that living, breathing human, to a gurney and inject him with sodium chloride, stopping his heartbeat, and kill him on Texas time, whether it's a politician like Ken Paxton who decides when he dies, or is it on God's time, living out his natural life? Now, we've discussed the two phases of the trial. The first phase we called the guilt phase, and that was about objective facts, about what happened. And that's why your verdict had to be unanimous, one way or the other. Either something happened or something didn't happen. Now we're in the penalty phase. Now I know Mr. Alaniz would like very much for us to stay in that guilt phase because they had a very strong case. It was obvious that they had a very strong case. Matter of fact, almost everyone who came into Tammy U and then came and sat in that stand said over and over, yeah, everybody knows he's guilty. That's why Mr. Alaniz would like to keep talking about that first phase, the guilt phase. But we are now in the penalty phase where each of you will make an individual decision based on your own beliefs, applying, yes, as Mr. Alaniz says, the facts and the law with your own individual approach. And that is why you've been chosen. It's simple. You get a choice, 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 you get a choice. This is the penalty phase. It's not the guilt phase where it must be unanimous. The only way that Mr. Burgos Aviles is executed on Texas time is if all of you in your own individual choice make that decision. You even heard Mr. Alaniz say that during his first part of his closing. It's very simple. Every life is sacred. As Mr. Alaniz said, every life matters. I'm asking you to condemn the sin, not the sinner. Now, this is a sad case. This is a terrible, terrible case. And I've said this every time I've had the opportunity, and I will continue to say it. I don't want anything for my advocacy and our advocacy for Ronald's life for someone to take away that somehow we don't believe that the lives of Dominic and Grizelda are important or valuable. We grieve for their loss. We treasure those lives. It's indescribably sad. It's unbelievable what happened to them. Mr. Alaniz very much wants to show you these horrible graphic photos of the crime. It's undescribable. It's unforgivable. No one is asking you to forgive Ronald Burgos Aviles. We're asking you to apply the facts and law and bring your own judgment to those things. Now, what I suggest to you is that the only way to get through the tragedy and the sadness is to, as these district attorneys told you to do during your voir dire, which is to set aside the emotions, to set aside your feelings, and apply the facts and the law. The difference is the question we have about what the facts and the law mean in this case. Now, I talked to you in my opening about our shared burden. I have carried a burden of asking for a life for some time. And I feel that burden very deeply today. And if, in a little while, I'm going to pass that burden off to you to make a decision about whether or not to take a life. I'm begging you, right? This is very emotional, to use the law and evidence to ease the weight of that burden. Condemn the sin and not the man, because we are all sinners and we all fail. I apologize. My throat is catching. Now, you heard the story that Ronald told Amy in their phone call. He said, I read this story and I was thinking about you and I was thinking about the kids. It's a story about a man who doesn't appreciate his wife. He doesn't appreciate his life. He parties too much, New Orleans, Mardi Gras, and he starts to drown at sea. And he's saved and he realizes what he's lost because God gives him a lifeline. And it's at that point that gives him faith. Now, Ronald's story, we suggest, is an apology to his wife and his children. He's telling her he didn't appreciate her and he didn't appreciate what he had. This is Ronald's repenting through God. You have to condemn the sin and not the man. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the special issues. But before I do, the reason we have this slide up is because we want to remind you about where the word penitentiary comes from. It comes from penitence, which means to repent or sorrow or regret for doing wrong. Ronald has a lot to repent for. Terrible, terrible sins. He's going to be sent to the penitentiary for the rest of his life for that repentance. In the opening, I talked about how much Dominic and saw Mr. Alaniz made reference to it in his closing. Send him to death row. They have mirrors on death row. I don't believe actually that's what Mr. Fitzpatrick said, but to me, and the testimony that Fitzpatrick gave you, is that the guys on death row, right, they got individual attention. They came to them individually, right? There was something special about it. My answer is that Ronald's going to be a face in the crowd, right? A face in the crowd. Just another murderer, another terrible story. Every time he passes a window pane and he sees his own face, he's going to see Dominic. He's going to reflect on that. It's going to be his punishment for the rest of his life. Now, you also heard a few of the calls between Ronald and his wife. Right? Some of them were rude, but you also heard that beautiful call about reckless love and the story about Ronald's dream. That is Ronald. This is an important day. And the voice is getting out. That is Ronald beginning his lifelong penitence. That beautiful dream of reckless love. Now, I know Mr. Alaniz, in his remaining 15 minutes, is going to remind you of the poor behavior of Ronald, of his messages to other women. He has a lot to repent. That's obvious. He's murdered 2 people. But I'm asking you to condemn the sin and not the man. I'd like to talk to you about family and faith. I'm going to start with Ronald's wife, Amy. Poor Amy. Everything that she's been through, right? She's, in addition to what she's been through with her childhood sweetheart, she's had to have her personal calls to her life love played throughout the world. Now, I want to remind everyone it's easy to take a moment in a relationship out of context to make it look good or bad. All these relationships have struggles within them, moments that are difficult, but at the same time, there are moments of love and tenderness, and you heard that. Everyone is more complex than the single moment of the worst thing that is happening. You also saw a cruel video of Ronald with his child, but you also saw messages from Ronald to his children trying to still be a father from a jail cell in Laredo. It's just much more complicated than that. He's made a terrible, tragic, irreversible, and overwhelming mistake. The act is evil. You heard Mr. Alaniz talk about Ronald's father, Carlos, describe it as an evil act from Satan. We all say it's evil. It's obviously evil. It's a terrible act. But you also heard Carlos say you condemn the sin and not the sinner. Now, I'd like to talk about Special Issue 1. And I'm going to keep reminding everybody, right? Before Ronald can be sentenced to death, you each have to make an individual decision whether there is a probability, not a possibility, of whether Ronald would commit criminal acts of violence in the future that would constitute a continuing threat to society. Now, and again, I remind you over and over, right? It's the state that bears this burden. So when Mr. Alaniz says, well, you're not saying that he will do it, you're saying that there's a probability he will do it. Okay? Do you see how playing with the words? Don't worry, you're not saying he's going to do it.
I don't object to that, saying that I'm playing with the words. I'm not playing with the words, Your Honor.
Overall,
Well, do you see the point of the words, the distinction that Mr. Alaniz is trying to make, right? He's trying to relieve you of the burden of grading what the state has to present you. Because now, later on, right, we're going to talk about Dr. Cunningham a little, and Dr. Cunningham's book, which says that an individualized assessment interview is the best way to do it. Now, why would the defense bring you that when they have the burden? They have the burden to show that that man is a continuing threat to society. So what I say to you is that when you make that decision, when you answer the question, right, you're not saying that there is no chance that Mr. Burgos Aviles is a continuing threat to society. What you are saying is the state hasn't proven their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is the law. And that is the difference. Now, I want to talk about what underlies this, because that was a part of the testimony of Dr. Cunningham. The reason why you have to answer Special Issue 1 is because the law says that if someone is incapacitated, and what did Dr. Cunningham mean by that? If someone is no longer a threat to Texas, to society, then life in prison is enough. We only get to Special Issue 2 if they are a continuing threat to society. So as you think about answering this question, and as you work through this special issue, you've got to know if Ronald is no longer a threat to society, then his punishment is life in prison. It's not the death penalty. And you'll also remember that during every one of your voir dires, every single one of these prosecutors told you that in Special Issue 1, you can consider the facts and circumstances of the crime, but we're going to bring you something extra to meet our proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, what did they bring you extra? They brought you Mr. Fitzpatrick. Now, Mr. Fitzpatrick is, there's some ironies here. He's the head of classification, but it was a little odd, right? Because we had an official, a longtime official from the Texas Department of Corrections and Justice who basically came and said, we can't handle it. We can't handle this situation. Now, the facts and the actual data and the statistics suggested something different, which is what I asked Mr. Fitzpatrick about in cross-examination. How often are the escapes? How many prisoners are there? So that is less than 1%, less than 0.5%, 0.1%, and those are the answers that you got from Mr. Fitzpatrick. That they are very good at their classification. They've been doing this for decades. I asked Mr. Fitzpatrick, did you create this classification system? And he said, no, it's been developed since way before I got there. It's over and over and over. So I want you to sit as you evaluate this evidence from Mr. Fitzpatrick and think about the ironies, right? What you wouldn't expect from a Texas Department of Correction official telling you that they can't do their job, when the numbers suggest something entirely different. Furthermore, what else did Mr. Fitzpatrick tell you? He told you every individual is different. Now, when I asked explicitly, Mr. Fitzpatrick, you're not here to give an individual assessment of Ronald Burgos Aviles, are you? He said, oh no, I have no knowledge, no opinion of it. Did you review his jail records even from Webb County? No, I haven't looked at his jail records from Webb County. So I ask you, when these people have the burden of proof to show that Mr. Burgos Aviles can't be incapacitated, how can they say they've met their burden of proof when the only additional witness they brought told you, no, I'm not here to get an individual assessment. I haven't even looked at his jail records. Sit with that moment. So when Mr. Alaniz says, oh, Dr. Cunningham said the best way to provide this information is to give an individual assessment, well, the only witness, and they have the burden of proof, the only witness they brought told you directly, I have nothing to say about this individual. I have something to say about other individuals who are unrelated, who might have caused problems in the past, and you guys should be scared. It has nothing to do with Ronald. So, what did Mr. Alaniz rely on today when he was talking to you? He went through his slides and said, this was a horrible crime. This was a terrible, terrible, awful crime. That's why you should fear Ronald Burgos Aviles, because this was an awful, awful crime. Well, we know it's an awful crime. We told you it was an awful crime in your voir dires when we said, how would you look at someone who killed a woman and killed a child under 10 years old? Mr. Pena, the first day we all met at TAMIU, told you this is a horrific, horrible crime that doesn't make any sense. What I'm telling you is, and what Dr. Cunningham also told you, who I'll get back to in just a moment, is that just because someone commits a horrible crime in the past doesn't actually mean anything in the context of how they'll be incarcerated. And you remember that chart that Dr. Cunningham gave, where he said crimes are a product of the context and the situation that they're in. I know that it's difficult to put together how someone who could do something as horrific as this crime is in a continuing threat to society, but that is the data. That are the facts. Now, just now, you heard the district attorney talk about, and this is how he started. This man scheduled his own death on April 9th. He's the one who scheduled his death. Now, what does that mean, right? That means that what they're saying is don't pay attention to these special issues. If you found him guilty, he scheduled his own death, then the death penalty is automatic, when every single one of these prosecutors told you when you were picked as jurors, it's not automatic. It's not automatic, right? We have to bring you something more. We have to prove something to you. Now let's look at the evidence that you have to counter the circumstances of the crime. You have 5 years of data from the Webb County Sheriff's Office. 5 years of data. Now, Mr. Alaniz, during his closing argument, said, oh, this man is so clever. For 5 years, he's been faking it. He's faking it for 5 years. I want to remind you what we lived through these past 5 years, right? Because you remember Mr. Alaniz started with, it's time, right? How long it's taken, now it's time, right? We've lived through a pandemic. where the Webb County Jail was essentially shut down. What I suggest to you is nobody can take 5 years of respectable, quiet behavior. That's not, it doesn't make any sense. All right. Now, he also made a big deal of, and I'll talk about sweet retired Lieutenant Elizondo in a moment. Oh, he's getting psychology books. So he's reading about psychology because he's a big criminal mastermind. Well, what I would suggest to you is you know what kind of books are self-help books?
He didn't say that.
Psychology books. So when you want to try to improve yourself, when you want to try to be a better person, when you want to try to reflect on your sins, when you want to do penitence, you get psychology books so you can learn about yourself. That's what psychology books are about. So now, it's interesting too, right? Because they're relying on his planning and his destroying evidence at the scene as his criminal mastermind as to why you should believe he's a future, that he has a continuing act of, that he's a continuing threat to society. Well, let's talk about his mastermind at the scene, right? You heard all those officers say from the first trial that actually he wasn't very good, that he looked like he was about to get sick, right? So he couldn't pull it off, all right? That's the thing for you to remember. If someone back in that jury room says, oh, I believe, you know, he planned it, he tried to destroy the scene, you've got to say to them, he's no criminal mastermind. It's like a child, and that's what I told you the first day we started.
We know.
Stage, which is
Double-digit IQ.
it's like a child.
Mm-mm.
Who would think they could get away with this?
A dumbass.
Immature child. And you know, you heard Mr. Alaniz refer to the interrogation video. And we were all here that day. It was maddening to watch. It was maddening for me to watch. Because why? Because it was like watching an adolescent child, like a bratty adolescent. He's no criminal mastermind. He's no continuing threat to society. He couldn't pull it off. Now, what else did we bring you, right? In addition to the fact that you know that he's been an excellent prisoner for these 5 years through a pandemic, we brought you the commander of the Webb County Jail, right? Now, I suggest to you, and I'm not allowed to bolster a witness, but in this case, what I would suggest to you is that this is a straight shooter, okay? This guy, he's a career law enforcement officer. He's no friend of a convicted murderer. He has no bias here. He has nothing, he's not gonna do the convicted capital murderer any favors, right? He's not gonna come in and try to boost or get something over. And what did he tell you? That he knew of no incidents in which Ronald was disrespectful or violent with any staff member or other inmates. In addition, we brought you a lieutenant, retired sweet Lieutenant Elizondo, who dealt with Ronald regularly because she dealt with the mail, and the worst thing she could say is that he complained sometimes because he wanted his books. So Ronald wanted his books about religion, and he wanted his books about God. That was the worst thing. He was never disrespectful, he was never violent, he was never threatening for 5 years in the Webb County Jail. Now, Dr. Cunningham. You spent a long day with Dr. Cunningham. And I understand why the district attorney's office has devoted so much time in their slides to Dr. Cunningham, because he's very persuasive, right? You remember that the other thing that Timothy Fitzpatrick said to you was, no one has a crystal ball, right? The two things he said, every individual is different and no one has a crystal ball. And you remember Mr. Alaniz saying, do you have a crystal ball up there? And Mr. Fitzpatrick's saying, no, I don't have a crystal ball. And he's saying, do you see a crystal ball on my desk? No, I don't see one. Do you see one on Mr. Boggs' desk? Do you see a crystal ball? No. Nobody has a crystal ball. That's right. So, and Dr. Cunningham went through that, right? Nobody has a crystal ball, and that's the distinction he made. So if no one has a crystal ball, and they have the burden to prove that that man is a continuing threat to society, how are we going to do it? What is the best evidence to do that if we can't predict the future, if we can't look into a crystal ball? It's the facts. It's the data, right? So you heard Mr. Alaniz say, oh, that was from other states. It was from all the other states except Alabama. You remember Dr. Cunningham saying, well, that data, first off, a lot of it is from Texas. And number two, there's no reason why jails are pretty much the same in other places, right? So what I would suggest to you is that they have the burden. They presented you no evidence, zero evidence, making any individualized assessment of Ronald Burgos Aviles. The only data, the only facts you have came from the defense, from Commander Hernandez, from Lieutenant Elizondo, and from a distinguished psychologist, board certified in both clinical psychology and forensic psychology, who's published numerous times and cited in United States Supreme Court cases, versus, well, I'm sorry, but nothing. Now, the other thing I would say to you is you're allowed to consider everything that's in this courtroom, okay, as a part of your jury deliberations. Do you see all those uniformed deputies? All right, we've seen them all over throughout this trial. See those handsome, super well-dressed deputies that have been with Mr. Burgos Aviles? Okay. You know this district attorney has subpoena power, right? And that he could get any one of those deputies to come in here and testify if Mr. Burgos Aviles was a threat, or if he was violent, or ever even disrespectful, right? Did you see any of these deputies? Did you see these handsome deputies back here who deal with him every day testify? You did not. Who has the burden of proof? The state has the burden of proof. Mr. Burgos Aviles is not a continuing threat to society. That should be obvious. Now I want to talk about special issue 2. Now the truth is, you shouldn't get to special issue 2 because the state has failed to meet their burden of proof on special issue 1. You shouldn't even look at special issue number 2. However, I am forced to talk about psychosis. Now, I understand why these prosecutors and Mr. Alaniz want to focus on psychosis. I do not believe at any point I said Ronald was suffering from psychosis. At any point did I say that. If Ronald was suffering from psychosis, we wouldn't be here right now. He'd be not guilty by reason of insanity. It doesn't make any sense.
To that statement that's with the mischaracterization of the law, Your Honor. It's incorrect for him to inject that into the jury.
Member Jury, the court is going to give you and has given you what the law that is relevant to this case is going to be, and you should receive all the law from the court and from no one else. I also have some instructions in the court's charge with regard to what occurs when in fact something is given to you by the lawyers that is not, that it doesn't run similar or the same as in fact the court has already given you. So please refer to that if you have any questions. Thank you.
So I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect to these proceedings or to you, but you can hear my voice. And I'm going to put a cough drop in. The point is this, is that if we had said that Ronald was suffering from psychosis, you would have heard that from Mr. Pena at the beginning of the trial. is that he didn't know what he was doing. He was hearing voices. It would have been a defense to these acts, but that's not what we're saying. He wasn't suffering from psychosis. At no point did we say he was suffering from psychosis. What I said is that he was prescribed medication which can cause psychosis. Now, what do you know about those medications? Now, Mr. Alaniz just told you, oh, you can forget about that. You can forget about that. All that, right? Now, Dr. Gonzalez. Now, he's a very good OBGYN, clearly, right? Best of Laredo, many years, over a long period of time. I have no doubt. Now, by his own testimony, you heard that he has a side business, which he calls a wellness clinic and spa, where he makes prescriptions for testosterone. And may I suggest to you that the truth is, it seemed like he was a bit offended by Dr. Gupta, who said there are these clinics popping up all over the country where you can go get testosterone and they'll freely prescribe it. And what I would suggest is that based on Dr. Gonzalez's testimony, that he was very clear. Like, it doesn't really matter what your levels are, that if you're feeling a little bad, yeah, testosterone can help. Now, when I asked Dr. Gonzalez these questions, right? So I'm talking about page 29 of the transcript, lines 13 through 16. So now you testified on direct examination that testosterone does have certain side effects. I believe you said hyper-emotional anger. Is that correct? Correct. So even if you don't believe anything else, all right, I'm telling you, right, the state's own witness, Dr. Gonzalez, said one of the side effects of testosterone was hyper-emotional anger. So when you look at those photos, right, and the video of Ronald being rude to the police officers, and remember, he was always cooperative, he was never violent, but when he had a bad attitude, right, remember what drugs he was on. In addition, what else did Dr. Gonzalez say in his testimony that day? And I'm reading from the same page, lines 19 through 22. Okay, now, but hyper-emotional anger, that sounds like a mood altering or a mind altering. Would you agree with that? Answer, sure. So, here's what we know. We never said it was psychosis. It wasn't psychosis. If it was psychosis, we wouldn't be here today. We do know that it causes hyper-emotionality and anger, and that it is mood altering and mind altering, which I believe was what I said in my opening argument, which is his mind wasn't right. He wasn't thinking right, okay? Now, at some point in Mr. Alaniz's closing argument, he was like, oh, the danger within, the hidden behind the badge. My question to you is you have a 28-year-old man, okay, who has no prior criminal history, all right? Matter of fact, he's a naval veteran. He's a supervisor in the Border Patrol, which he achieved very quickly through hard work. Doesn't have any violence, suddenly goes out and commits a horrific, terrible crime, a disgusting, awful crime. Wouldn't you want to know what's going on in his mind, right? When you're weighing his moral blameworthiness, right? His moral culpability, wouldn't you want to know if there was something affecting him, if there was something going on?
I'm going to object to this argument, placing additional burdens on the state, Your Honor, that we should be obligated to have them evaluate.
This is argument of counsel, and the jury, both parties are allowed to give argument what they believe the evidence has already showed, and also to make reasonable inferences therefrom. Remember that in the instructions that I've given you with regard to that what counsel tells you, if it's not supported by the evidence or statements of law made by counsel, that if not in harmony with the law stated by the court, that you should in fact follow what the court tells you. Thank you.
So what I'm saying is wouldn't you want to know these things about what is going on in the person's mind? So nearly 3 decades of a, frankly, an accomplished life, right? He's progressing, he's immature, he cheats on his wife, on his childhood sweetheart, but all of a sudden, out of that, he goes and commits these ghastly, disgusting crimes. Wouldn't, as fact finders, as someone making individual moral choices, wouldn't you want to know if there was something in his head? Wouldn't that be relevant to you? Do you remember when the district attorney talked about Juan David Ortiz, and he said, now, isn't it true that Juan David Ortiz suffered from an IED and had a brain injury? Isn't that true? And that's why he received a life sentence, even though he killed 4 people? Use that logic, right? Apply it to Ronald, right? The district attorney is telling you that Juan David Ortiz deserved a life sentence for killing 4 people because his mind wasn't right. Something was off in his head.
The testimony, Your Honor, the state was not seeking death on Juan David Ortiz.
Which was their choice, right? And everyone knows that was their choice. They chose not to. And then when the witness was asked about it, he said, well, did you know that Juan David Ortiz had a brain injury and suffered from an IED in Iraq? It's the same logic. I beg of you to use it. Now, I don't want anyone to say that anything we've said excuses anything Ronald has said, all right? I'm in complete agreement with the district attorney. It is unforgivable, all right? No one is saying that excuse it, but it is a window into his moral blameworthiness. And you remember during your voir dire how these district attorneys all said, you're going to answer a question about his moral blameworthiness, all right? Now, there's a difference between blame and moral blameworthiness, all right? He's blamed. You've convicted him, all right? He is blamed. There's no doubt about it. He's going to die in prison no matter what your individual choices are. He's blamed. And as you evaluate his moral blameworthiness, you have to think about what was going on in his head, just as what this district attorney did for Juan David Ortiz. It's the exact same logic. I'm asking you to use it. Now, you should also consider the district attorney's argument about the escapee that killed 5 people. And you remember he literally just referred to it 45 minutes ago. Well, you know, it doesn't happen much, but it does happen, and they could get out and they might kill a bunch of people, all right? Do you remember that escapee's record, Gonzalo Lopez? He had a decades-long history of criminal acts, right? That is nothing like Ronald Burgos Aviles. Nothing like Ronald Burgos Aviles. And again, I'm going to keep repeating it. I'm asking you to condemn the sin and not the man. Now, what do you know about this man? You know he's very flawed. He has a lot of flaws, right? He had affairs. He compulsively sought female attention. That was obvious. They made reference to it. Even on April 9th, right? And the district attorney's office seems to be saying, forget about the special issues, all right? Forget about your oath. Forget about your duty. Look how gross this man is. He was sexting on the day that he killed someone, right? That's an emotional response. It is disgusting. That's awful. Sexting's probably disgusting on any day. But the point is, he's flawed, all right? He spent his life striving, pursuing, and excelling despite all that, all right? Now, Mr. Alaniz said, there is no mitigation evidence. Zero, no mitigation evidence. Well, what I would ask you to think about is the story that Carlos told you, all right? About Ronald as a little boy, right, who's desperate for his mother's attention. Like every little boy. The bond between a mother and a son is a holy one, is so important, all right? And that little boy, right, didn't get the attention from his mom. You heard Carlos tell you he didn't understand it. He was so aghast, right? He was afraid to leave her alone with his children because he was afraid she would hurt them, right? And then once they got to be, after 13 years, he wasn't afraid anymore, and that's when he left. Is the day that he was no longer afraid. So every time they show these immature, silly things, that ridiculous contacts with women, I want you to think about that little boy striving, desperate for his mother's attention. Desperate. The woman that when she had a second son, she cherished him, giving him love, physical touch, taking care, all the things that she didn't give Ronald. So not only did he not get those things from his mother, but he had to grow up seeing his brother receiving all of those things. Now, the district attorney played you, or showed you, played you a phone call. It was in Spanish, and they provided you a translation of him being very rude to his mother. It was out of context, right? You learned later from Carlos that his mother shows up at a trial, his capital murder trial, where this state is seeking to execute him without any notice, right? Like it was a birthday party. Like, I'm gonna surprise everyone. I'm just gonna show up, right? Hadn't heard from her in forever. And yeah, he expressed frustration. Why would you show up? Why would you surprise me? Don't you know everyone's looking at me? Don't you know every moment I'm being scrutinized? But what they didn't show you, and what we showed you, is that the very next day, he wrote his mother a letter of apology. So, the same mother who didn't hold him as a baby, and that time that we know is so vital for bonding, those first 1,000 days, right? Who wouldn't touch him, who he wanted to be held, wouldn't, and then when she had a second child, preferred the second child, that same mother, who then has a birthday, acts like it's a birthday surprise for his capital murder trial, he's still trying to please her. He's still trying to make connections with her. He still loves her and writes her a letter of apology because he was rude to her the day before. So, all these relationships, right, they're more complicated. They're multidimensional, right? There's more to them. You can take a moment with Amy, right, and make it look like it's dirty, it's wrong, right? But then you take another moment and it's deep and it's meaningful. All these things deserve a context as you answer these questions. Now, Ronald's life. You heard from Carlos that when he was young, he left Puerto Rico and he moved to Florida. And he worked hard in Florida, right? He graduated early from high school. He got his high school sweetheart pregnant. They were so young that they both lived with their own parents. That's how young they were. But because he wanted to provide, he joined the Navy. He got a job, right? And he did well in the Navy. And then after he left the Navy, his grandmother and his father said, oh, you should go into the Border Patrol. And he'd always wanted to be a police officer. He'd always had a lifelong fascination with law enforcement. And you'll remember I told you that the truth is, this man, right, he identifies more with these officers in uniform here than he does with his defense counsel, which, in all truth, you might have seen in his messages about his defense counsel. But that is who he is, right? He believes in following the rules, right? I know it's so difficult to wrap our heads around that someone who could commit such ghastly acts believes in following the rules and wants to be respectful to officers, but that is who he is at his base. And you can consider his good behavior in jail, right? His respectful, quiet attitude in jail over these years as mitigating evidence. You can consider his prior military service as mitigating evidence. You can consider his service in the Border Patrol, even though, obviously, the way it ended. But you can consider all those things as mitigating evidence. Now, something else I want to talk about. Ronald is also a father. And saying that, in this case, is complicated. It's messy. Ronald had 3 children. 2 of them are still with us. He tries, he wants, even though he's in jail, to stay connected to them. You saw messages to them, writing to them, wishing them happy birthday. Okay? One of those children is not with us, is dead. Grizzly murdered by Ronald's own hand. Now, we condemn that, right? We don't forgive it. It is unforgivable, but we condemn the sin and not the man, and I'm asking you to let Ronald try, as you've seen him try in these past years, be a father as much as he can be to those 2 living sons. Now, a lot of when we talked to those 400 jurors that Mr. Alaniz talked about, a lot of the comments were, remember the survey questionnaire, 29 pages? I'm really curious. What was he thinking, right? What was he thinking? What was going on in his head? And that's something I want you all to take away as well, right? Because it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that someone in nearly 3 decades of totally mundane, right, behavior, not exceptional, not violent, not criminal, right, no decades-long history, right, suddenly goes and commits horrible acts like this. It doesn't make sense. What was he thinking? So you shouldn't get to special issue 2, right? It shouldn't be a consideration. But as you think about it, I want you to think about, right, and it's true, the drugs that he was on, the phentermine, right? And you'll remember I asked Dr. Gonzalez, well, psychosis goes in stages, right? And he said, yes. If you want, I can reread that testimony. And it's same page, 29, lines 23 through 25. Okay, now there are phases of psychosis. Isn't that true? Answer, sure, right? So I regret backing up a little bit and talking about psychosis because it's not a true issue in this case. We never said it was a true issue. We said it's mind altering, right? We said it affects the way you think, but even if someone back in that jury room says, oh, that's a lawyer trick, they're trying to say he was under psychosis, you've got to say to them, I didn't say that, okay? And it doesn't turn on like a switch, like Mr. Alaniz is telling you. There are phases to it, right? Your brain is affected. So as you think about his moral culpability, right, and you make this individual decision, you've got to consider it, okay? What was he thinking? Something was going on in his head. Because nearly 3 decades of law-abiding, nonviolent behavior, this crime, he's going to be labeled a child killer. He's going to be labeled for the rest of his life as a capital murderer, but what was he thinking? It's not who he is. There's more to him than that. Now, soon you're going to sit down and I talked about this in my opening. Soon you're going to sit down and you're going to have a civilized conversation with your other jurors about whether or not a living, breathing human in this room should be executed. It's kind of an incredible thought, right? You're just going to talk about whether or not someone who's been with us all this time is going to be strapped down to a gurney and then executed. That's an awesome responsibility. And there are things, and we keep harping on these, that I want everyone to remember as you engage in this conversation, right? Is that nobody should be forced, no one should be forced to impose the death penalty on another person if they do not agree that it is the appropriate punishment, right? So what does that mean? It means that your other jurors, you should not bully other jurors, and you should not be bullied, right? If you see someone being bullied, you need to stand up and say, that's not appropriate, right? That isn't right. That isn't the way we conduct these deliberations, right? It is your responsibility to make individual moral decisions about the special issues that determine the ultimate punishment, right? Your individual decisions, right? What you bring to it, okay? Now, we all agree we want you to apply the facts and the evidence, but you're going to still bring your own individual analysis to that. That is your job and responsibility as jurors. Now, the last one on this slide is, under Texas law, the sentence of life without parole is respected as a final punishment for capital murder. I feel like I've talked a lot about this, right? The death penalty is not automatic. Everyone has said that, right? In fact, what you can infer from Special Issue 1 is that the only people who are eligible to be executed in Texas are those that pose a continuing threat to society. If they can be incapacitated, then life without parole is the appropriate punishment. It's enough. Frankly, some of these are a little repetitive. But so each juror must make their own individual moral judgment as the appropriate sentence, life in prison without parole or the death penalty. I feel like I've discussed this. Now, you all have a duty to deliberate, all right? What does deliberation means? It means that you consider the other person's opinion. Now, after you deliberate and consider the other person's opinion, right, you must, or you should agree to disagree if you two cannot meet. Why is that? Because this is an individual moral choice that you're making. This is the second phase. This is not the first phase, right? You're not determining what happened, like what facts occurred, either it did or it didn't. You're making individual choices. And once you've made your individual choice, you must vote in accordance with your own findings and conscience, and never to vote in support of a verdict that you do not feel is correct. Okay, so, and that goes both ways. Okay? I'm not saying it doesn't go both ways. It goes both ways, all right? If you came here to give someone a death sentence, I've probably already lost you, all right? And I'd suggest it's not accurate because the state hasn't met their burden on Special Issue 1, but if you've deliberated and considered and you came here to give a death sentence, and that is where you are, then you should vote according to that. And again, this is a little repetitive, I've said it. No juror should ever pressure another juror or feel pressured themselves to vote in violation of their conscience or their oath to make their own final decision on a verdict. Now, my theme is obviously condemn the sin, not the man. I have lived with this burden of speaking for a life, and I apologize. I don't want Mr. Alaniz to say, oh, Carlos, he was just worried about himself. Oh, Mr. Boggs is talking about his own burden. I understand. Right? This is a terrible crime, right? The Hernandez family, Angelica, Mary, her poor father. I talked about in my opening that 4th of July weekend, right, where we had several days off, and that the day before that weekend, we saw the crime scene photos, and I saw several of you crying, right? It was all I could do to stop myself from crying, and the joy and wonder of holding a child in your hands, which I hope you all have experienced or will experience. I know those things. But what I'd say to you is that I hope I've done justice to carrying this burden of speaking for a life and asking you to condemn the sin and not the sinner. This case has probably changed all of us. We will never forget the things that we saw and heard here, right? Just this morning, right, as I was getting dressed, like I said, I wanted to do justice for speaking to a life. As I was getting dressed, I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, how do I look? How do I look? How do I look? And then what did I think? I thought about Grizelda, okay? And her asking Adriana, how do I look? And the sadness that means. And I'll be honest, many members of my team, right, and other lawyers have said, why do you keep talking about how sad it is? Can't you see that that's bad for Ronald? Can't you see we need not to talk about the sadness? Sadness is undeniable. Okay? Sadness is undeniable. There's no way around sadness, right? It's a cloud, right? The only way this burden from me, and which I'm going to give to you in a moment, right, to get through that sadness, is to focus on the law and the evidence. That is the only way through this sadness. Ronald's going to die in prison no matter what your individual choices are. I'm asking you to do the courageous thing. Condemn the sin and not the man. I understand this district attorney's office wants you to vote for execution, right? I understand all these cameras in here, all this media. I understand what all that means as well. This is a big and important case. If it bleeds, it leads, right? That's what the media says. That's why they're here, all right? To vote with your oath, with your individual conscience. It's a courageous act. It's an important act. Ronald is guilty, all right? Breaks my heart, all right? Breaks my heart to think that the man that I've been working with, that I've sat next to, that I know is guilty. It literally breaks my heart. But I'm going to say to you what we all wish that we could have said to Ronald on April 9th of that year, which is this: you don't have to do it, okay? You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. Ronald, you don't have to do it. Please condemn the sin and not the sinner. Vote with your conscience and follow your oath. We're all God's children, or none of us are God's children. Life is sacred.
Thank you, Mr. Bog. Mr. Alaniz, you have the remaining time.
Can I start, Your Honor?
You may.
Let's throw it up there and see what sticks. A play on words. He finishes by saying, vote your conscience. The instructions say, look at the facts, look at the evidence. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Boggs. You can't. You are not here sentencing a child. Oh, he's a child. He was acting like a child. He was acting immature. He's not a child. Use Juan David Ortiz. The state did not seek death on Juan David Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz did not kill his son. And in Ortiz's case, the defense brought mitigation. Accountability. This case is about accountability. We have given you all the evidence so that you could vote in good conscience to answer question 1. Yes. And to answer question 2, no. It's interesting to sit there and listen to the arguments by Mr. Boggs. He makes a big point about the mother. One of the other themes is the scripts. The scripts throughout this trial, right? The mother loves Ronald. I submit she came here to court to show her support for Ronald. But what happens when he sees her? What are you doing here? It's not part of the script. The one that's important is me, not you. You heard the phone call? He ran her off. It didn't go. In deliberating on special issue number 2, you shall consider all the evidence presented at guilt and innocence stage of trial and the punishment stage of trial, including but not limited to evidence of the defendant's character. You can consider the defendant's character, his background, and the personal moral culpability of the defendant. It's not the fact that he was texting that was disturbing. It was showing the depraved heart that he had, the callousness that he had in doing it before and after he just killed his son, when he still had the blood on his hands, while he waited there taking crotch picks, waiting them for them to walk into their trap. Ladies and gentlemen, this didn't happen in a bubble. He uses the word suddenly. This suddenly happened. No, it didn't. They need a reality check. I submit that this planning to kill baby Dominic started when he found out that she wanted child support. That went almost 2 months that this plan was in play. Well, it was a testosterone. Okay. He's been in Webb County jail for almost 5 years. There's no testosterone there that we know of. There's no Fetterman being injected, but yet he still has the anger issues. Okay? It's hard to get in the mind of a killer, but it's not hard to identify evil. It's not hard to identify evil. The acts committed by that man who's sitting there were evil. And what are the characteristics that you can consider? Rogue. He wants to define penitentiary. Let me define rogue. A dishonest or unprincipled person. An elephant or other large wild animal driven away, living apart from the herd and having savage or destructive tendencies. Rogue. It's fitting that the defense puts that picture in their opening statements. He was a rogue officer. And he doesn't define who the Border Patrol are. He's not a Border Patrol agent today. He's a danger within the family, within law enforcement, and within the society that he's going to. Because if you're a threat and you get in his way, you know what his character says that he can do. If he can do it to an innocent baby, imagine a stranger. Actions speak louder than words. That's how you can tell his predictability. Initiating at 8:25 in the morning, before he's committing the murder, contact with Z. Begins sexting with Z at 8:40. Sending this picture barely an hour before the murders. His character. I won't even repeat what he says, but you can read it right there at 9:08 a.m. Less than 45 minutes before his baby and the young mother walk into his trap. Mr. Block says that he's burdened, that he's going to pass this burden on to you. He's not passing a burden on to you. You're doing your job. What about the burden that the Hernandezes carry every single day? And the burden that they're going to have for the rest of their lives? What about their burden? They didn't deserve to be butchered the way they were. And if he could have gotten away with it, he would have. And he almost did. And thank God for her sister's protection and her friend that they were able to find him. Otherwise, he would have gotten away with it. Make no mistake. Dame, after the murder, that's what he says, 19 minutes before he's detained. His character, you could consider that. The sinner and the sin. You can't have it both ways. We've always relied on the facts. We've always relied
10
on
minutes.
the evidence. What was that, Your Honor?
10 minutes.
Thank you.
Yo estoy de lo más feliz y tranquilita allí con Guillermina, con tu padre, con los
A mí lo que me importa soy yo, ¿me entiendes? Piensa, por favor, usa tu cabeza por un momento.
And all I feel like is in the end, like I never even knew you. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, like always. And then it also sucks that you probably believe everything you hear. Just like everybody else.
It just frustrates me because when I was in the room and they were doing the questioning, I could hear them reading out messages of eggplant emojis that you were saying it was in March of 2018. Like, you just made me so mad at me. You betrayed me. You betrayed me. To the end, you betrayed me.
That's your problem. You're not distrustful with other people, that's your problem. You used to trust people before, so I don't know what the fuck you're over there like not trusting people now.
Well, maybe you should pray about that, Ronald. Maybe you should pray and after that answer.
I'm not gonna answer, that's your problem, not mine.
Thank you. That's so very sweet of you, just like always.
Oh yeah, you know what, fuck that. I'm over here and I don't know what the fuck I did to you or what, but I just asked you, I don't want to fuck you when you come out with your fucking answer, you know, I'm really fucked up.
The blame game. That's what he's about. You want to know character? Listen to his phone calls. Aberrant behavior. No, ladies and gentlemen. It's in his heart. It's who he is. You want to judge somebody? Look into their heart. Don't look at their face. Look at what's in evidence. State's Exhibit 584. I'll read it to you. They told me no, I'm staying in Laredo for trial since the judge thinks in comparison with the other one, Ortiz, he puts, mine is not as bad. He also said that the pretrial publicity is not as bad. The judge that saw my bond hearing 2 weeks after I got arrested, he denied my bail, but he gave Ortiz bail, even though he confessed to killing 4 people and ran away from the cops. I didn't confess because I didn't do shit and I didn't run. That's who you have there. That's in evidence. Hold on. It's Nay. She said she's going to talk to you in the AM and then come here in the afternoon. That other girl messaged me that she's going to go visit you tomorrow early, then come here in the afternoon. Take advantage if there's anything you want to tell me that you can't through here. Manipulating, using his resources to break the rules. Remember this letter? They're going to fall from the sky into the ocean, and when they are there, they're going to sink into the deep Pacific Ocean. Let's give you a little glimpse into the way he thinks of people that are threats, of putting them in a box, and dropping them to the deep blue sea. These are the things that go in somebody's evil mind. Three times wanted Grizelda to get an abortion. He wanted Dominic dead then. On March 25th, injecting him. He wanted him dead on that day. And finally successful on April the 9th of 2018. The lies on and on and on. Remember, all of that evidence, you can consider it in answering special issue questions number 1 and number 2. I don't know whose car it is. Oh, it rings a bell. It's hard to explain the situation for the fucking jury, he says. It looks like she took a beating last night or whatever. It's a fucking major coincidence, he says. Hey, well, you know what? Give us your phone. I'm not giving you fucking shit, is what he said. And you're going to apologize to me for accusing me of this. Remember he tells Reyes and Elizondo, you guys are going to owe me an apology when all this is over. Calculating, manipulative, deceptive. And they want you to send him to be a G3 inmate with all the rights, privileges, accommodations that they have. We don't need more than the crime. The crime itself and its characteristics, the evidence, the facts is all you need to answer question 1 with a yes and question 2 with a no.
Go to bed. Go to bed. Go to bed, I said. Shut up. What are you crying for? You dramatic little shit.
Who does that? Look into his heart. You know the answer.
Wrap it up.
Yes, sir. After the meeting at the park, I got 3 more slides, Your Honor.
Who did the mess? You did the mess? It was you?
wise man once said, evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. Evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. And yes, that takes courage. And when you get in there, I'll ask you, on special issue number 1, where the probability that Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles would commit criminal acts of violence and constitute a continuing threat to society, answer yes and sign it. And on special issue number 2, whether taking into consideration all the evidence and circumstances, his character, background, the personal moral culpability of the defendant, there's sufficient mitigating circumstances to warrant a sentence of life in prison without parole rather than death sentence be imposed. Write in no and sign it. On both counts, yes to special issue number 1 and no to special issue number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alaniz. Members of the jury, I'll give you time to get back to your table if you'd like, sir. Thank you. I'm about to send you into the jury room now to become again a jury deliberation room. I want you to start deliberating according to my instructions. I understand that also what you all ordered earlier is already just got there a couple of minutes ago. The ones who will stay in the jury deliberation room will be the 12 jurors, which of course now includes our new 12 jurors, and the alternates will stay in the alternative room, which we have for you as well. Mr. Rubio.
Please rise for the jury.
Oh, it's verdict watch time. I just want to see if they say anything else. So, as we speculated, it would be jury deliberation time, and then before sentencing, the victim impact statements. So yeah, that's what we thought it would be, but I mean, as someone said earlier, that would be then for the judge. The jury comes back with a recommendation, then there's victim impact statements, and then the sentencing. Mother says he will get death. There's no remorse. He really he doesn't cry at all, even now. He doesn't. I don't see remorse either, you know, so I know what you're saying. Okay, let's just, I'm going to make this one stream public, which is the next one. So I do have a verdict watch stream, which means once they go in, and they did talk about now, I think food may have arrived, right? Texas time is? Yeah, it's almost 2 o'clock now, 4 minutes to 2. And the judge said what you ordered 2 has arrived. So they're going to eat first, you know. So if it's like an hour to an hour and a half for lunch, they normally take at least 90 minutes to 2 hours to get back in and all that, right? So then, okay, is that it? Is that it? Are they starting to deliberate? Oh yeah, you like start the clock. I think I'm going to start it on my phone as well so that I know as well. And I'll get the clock going now. Just hold on 1 second. I just quickly want to go here. So I will be waiting. I'll be watching, monitoring and everything. Just hold on 1 second. Stopwatch. Let's start that. Okay. So I've started it there. And let's just make sure this started in Texas time at 13:56. So that's also good to write down. Whew, those closing statements from the defense. They started off okay, and then it went to that poor Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles. Shame, which is why we had that little picture up there with the little halo, because he's just such an angel. He's just such a model inmate. Oh, man. And then the sob stories, from his childhood and all that. Come on. That just went downhill from there. At first, I thought, okay, it's starting off pretty good. But no, unfortunately, they lost a lot of us there halfway through. I'm like, what? But I really like how Boggs said, no disrespect to any of you, but I'm going to be putting in a cough drop now. I was like, okay, you do that. And he's like, do you see all these handsome officers at the back there? Another good moment in the defense closing arguments. And I just love how he low-key roasts Burgos. He's like, he is immature. He's a cheater. Sexting is gross on any day. He has many flaws. He's like a child. I'm like, damn. Like, I'm quite liking the bit of roasting he's got going on there. Donna, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay. So, and I must start the clock on my word. Just hold on 1 second. I just want to see what I missed up here. Okay. So, well, it doesn't really help if I start the clock on here. I've got it on my phone. Okay. And it's at 13:56. So we can basically call it 2 o'clock Texas time. Okay. Because they had to walk out. At 2 o'clock Texas time is when the jury left the room to start deliberating. So that is what we know. All right. Now, just give me 1 second. Okay. Wheezy said the judge had full control today. He's like, wrap it up. I just think that rebuttal was so good as well. And I feel like that was so intense that I think I made a highlights video for you, which is about 50 minutes long. I think now maybe we should just take a timeout, right? And then watch that later. What do you think? Also, let me see what you voted for here. How long do you think the jury will deliberate? Okay. 43% of you said less than 1 hour to 3 hours. 43%. 36% said 3 to 6 hours. Remember the last deliberations, which was for the unanimous guilty. They came back with the unanimous guilty. Was 4 hours and 5 minutes. And so 17% said 6 to 24 hours. And 4% said until the end of the week. Yes. Yeah. Karen says 9 o'clock in South Africa. Hopefully they decide before midnight. I'm not sure they will. And of course, I'm in the same time zone. It's 9 p.m. for me as well. Doesn't matter what time they come back. I've got your back, guys. I'll be watching. I'll be waiting. If I need a Red Bull, I'm going to get one. If you want to get me a coffee, you know where to do that. I'll be awake. I'm waiting for this verdict. I can't wait. Okay, so Maria says, enough of him. Grizelda and Dominic deserve justice. His good behavior is to save himself. He should have been good to his child and Gray. Absolutely. I mean, that argument that Boggs had just really makes no sense when he said he's seeking his mother's love and all that. But okay, that doesn't make any sense when he killed his own son and his son's mother. That doesn't make sense. So that was hard. So, okay, I think we all need a little timeout. So what's going to happen now, if you just hang in here, then this stream will teleport you to the next one. Okay? So just wait until I play the outro and everything, and then you should automatically get teleported to the Verdict Watch stream. Now, I've set that for about 2 hours from now. I'll just keep shifting it as we go. Okay? I'm only going live when they come back. So let me just quickly redirect you. Redirect you, yes. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, we're going there to Verdict Watch. And I will update my thumbnail and everything because victim impact statements will then probably happen later. So we'll do that. So if you just hang in here, then you'll do the Grizzly teleport and you can all start chatting over there. And there it's set up for, I'll probably set it for midnight. So it's 3 hours. And then I'll just keep on moving it forward. But don't worry. Even if it counts down, it says 15 minutes left. And then it resets and it says 4 hours left. Don't worry. Because whenever they are back, we're back. I run when I see it. Panda Place, welcome to membership. Thank you so much. And welcome to everyone who's new here. Really appreciate you being part of this community. Hope you'll stick around to see lots of the cases that we cover. I generally follow the same format. Presentations, deep dives, map time, snarky time where appropriate. Okay, we don't bully people, but we get snarky where appropriate, and especially at the killers. Oh yes, indeed. And especially when they're found guilty. You can really snark it up. So if you like that and watching trials, this is now new to the channel from this year. I didn't always live stream trials, but it's really great to watch this all with you. Yes, so then subscribe. Become part of us, and thank you if you have done so. Are we all ready to be teleported? Let's see how many people out of 13,395 get teleported to the next one. Okay? So subscribe, hit the bell, set it to all. When you see that stream, make sure you click notify me so that you do get notified, okay? And if you want a backup of all that, Patreon is a really great source of notifications because it sends it straight to your email. So if you've got your email, notifications on, you'll get that immediately. And if you've got the app, it'll give you a Patreon notification too. Gerda says, I want to say to all the Grizzlies, thank you for helping me get through this trial. You are all amazing. Thank you, Gerda. And I agree with you. I wouldn't have been able to without all of you. It was a very tardy, drawn out trial, but yet very, very important. And we are here together for Grizelda and Dominic's family. And please continue to share the purple hearts, the white ribbons, the baby Yoda, and everything. Okay, so see you there in the teleport stream. Bye, everyone.
Hi, Grizzlies. You will now be redirected